Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing? I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers, people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
They'll challenge your authority. They'll try to break your will. They'll push you to the edge of your sanity. Because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory, not theirs. Defend it. Who makes the payments? Who cleans it? Who drives it? You do. That's who. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch. Until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn those earrings today. I like those earrings. Gabby has those awesome earrings. I need to ask her where she got those, but that's just what she would want me to do. I'll have Michaela ask her for me.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Yeah, but then Michaela will be like, why don't you just ask her yourself? That's just like Michaela.
Sarah, buckle up.
Michaela's such a great name. I wish I was called Michaela. There's like a dozen Sarahs in my class.
Hey, we're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I forget sometimes because my brain is like busy, you know? I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
Sometimes it can be tough to get through to your kids, but it's not impossible. Always make sure they're wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Remember, you have the keys, you have the power. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff, even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm gonna keep ticking, but no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There is only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more.
Get arrested!
No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days, they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
Play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouth.
Yay!
Man. Can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
You're not even a has-been. You're a never was. You're a never was.
From country to country, state to state, city to city, town to town, you are listening to the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. October 25th, a few days away from Halloween. Looking forward to it. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a great show lined up for you. You can call us at 631-672-3108. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the country, including, ladies and gentlemen, The Loudmouth, which airs every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do is go to www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Speedy, what's up, man?
Two things. First of all, on a more sad note, John Jansen, who's been on our show,
yes,
he didn't say if it was his wife, but it could be his ex-wife. He said his kid's mother passed away, unfortunately.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Last week. So my condolences to John and all of his kids for that. And on a more positive note, happy anniversary to my parents. 30th anniversary was on Monday. They went to.
Are they listening right now?
I'm not sure, but they were.
Happy anniversary to you. So I'm not
sure if there's a song for that, but
yeah, there is. I'm singing it.
All right. Well, you could go that for whatever record deal you have later on.
I don't know about a record deal,
but
I don't know if anybody wants to hear me sing, but. Then again, who knows?
But happy anniversary to them. They went away to a very scenic spot in Massachusetts, a cabin area. And
mommy and daddy spending some quality time together?
Yes, indeed.
No sons?
Nope.
No dogs?
No side interferences of especially dogs, yes.
Yeah, well, we all know about your dog.
They got yes, they got away. Yes, he begs for attention all the time. Thank you for noting. But yes, they got away very nice. It was a very beautiful area from the photos they were sending. So happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary to the Kloibers. But we have a great show lined up for you at 8:30. One guest tonight. It's crazy, but one guest tonight. He's a good one. We will be talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero. He will be joining us. He played from 2014 to 2022 with the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, and the Mets. So he will be joining us a little bit later in the show.
That is your NL champion at Diamondbacks, by the way.
That's right. We will get into that. Reports say that Joel Embiid is the number one superstar the Knicks want to trade for. What does that mean? I mean, seriously, the whole James Harden thing seems to grow legs. And if it continues to grow legs and the James Harden thing completely falls off the cliff, and what I mean by that, he could be traded. Why would Joel Embiid want to stay with Philadelphia? Because they don't have a chance to win a championship. So this story obviously is putting it out there for, Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers that the New York Knicks are interested in Joel. Giannis signs a 3-year, $186 million extension beginning in 2025. For all the Knicks fans, for all the fans out there that believe that Giannis was going to be a free agent after this year and opt out of his contract, that is never going to happen. So there you go for all the fans out there. If they expected Giannis, all the New York Knicks fans or anybody that thought they had a chance to get Giannis, that's not going to happen. Michigan staff member Connor Stalions is caught with leading their sign stealing operations for the last 3 years. So there are some interesting storyline behind this, but again, we will get into that. Bill Belichick reportedly received a multi-year contract in the offseason, and the Patriots kept it a secret. So he will still be a Patriot moving forward. So for all the fans out there that thought that they're moving on, maybe it's O'Brien's opportunity. Maybe if Josh McDaniels becomes available, there was a chance that he could have landed over there, but that's not happening anymore. Jim Irsay says the NFL should have an expanded replay system. Jim Irsay is out there speaking again. I don't know why.
Finally saying something good.
But again, he's just one owner. There has to be multiple owners to get involved in this conversation before this happens. So maybe next year, maybe moving forward, the NFL decides, hey, let's try it in the playoffs. If it works in the playoffs, then we move forward in the offseason for the full season. I don't know, but it's definitely a story that could grow legs moving forward. Dusty Baker announces his retirement following the Astros Game 7 loss to the Rangers. But Dusty Baker is one of the best managers of the last 50 years, and he finally wins his championship, his World Series championship. He had a chance to win it again this year. It fell apart for them. And obviously he's an old man. I think he's in his 80s. Yeah. And he wants to spend some time with his grandchildren and his family. So I understand that. The Rangers and the Diamondbacks will meet in the World Series. So we'll get into our preview of the World Series. I was right about the Texas Rangers. I was wrong that the Philadelphia Phillies was going there because they're not. But I'm sure Philadelphia has their own thoughts going into the offseason on the chances they had to winning a World Series this year, which a lot of people thought they definitely did. This was one of their better teams we've seen since they won a championship in the early 2000s. So
maybe you and Shane Green jinxed them by saying you're going to go to a World Series game.
Maybe. I mean, did you hear what Mad Dog said?
Oh, yeah. He has to stick to that, though. He has to retire.
He's not
I know he's not going to, but
he's not retiring.
But he's not going to gain a little. He's going to lose a little credibility by making that statement and then saying, "Oh, I'm just going to stay on anyway."
It's interesting. I'm very interested to see what happens moving forward with that. But again, there is nothing more to say about that. But let's get into it because there's so much to get into, and there's a lot. We will get into our week 7, obviously our thoughts in week 7 for the NFL, and we're going into week 8 already. Isn't that crazy? It is crazy. The Jets and the Giants this week, that'll be fun. That'll be interesting.
Without Brandon Jacobs, because he will never respond to me, but okay.
Listen, I understand why Brandon Jacobs doesn't want to respond to you. I mean, honestly, he didn't want to pay up. He didn't want to pay up.
Nope.
He lost the bet. And don't worry, one way or another, we will get him to pay up his bet. Maybe it won't be with the Giants and the Jets, but he'll pay up his bet. He lost. And we will stick it to him when we do get him on the show again. Ian Rappaport reports that the Patriots gave Bill Belichick a multi-year contract extension before the season started, and the Patriots kept it a secret. NBC Sports Boston reporter Tom Curran says that the deal was still not swayed by Robert Kraft from replacing Belichick if he wants to. Curran says he only expects Belichick's contract to be guaranteed for this season and next. Rappaport says that the Patriots would only consider a difficult decision to let him go if they struggle again next season. Belichick earned his 300th career win against the Bills in Week 7. He is 29 wins from surpassing Don Shula as the winningest head coach in NFL history. I am surprised with this story. And it's not like a team to keep this a secret, but again, it is the Patriots, and the Patriots like to keep a lot of things secret. I'm happy for Bill Belichick because if you're sitting back and you're wondering if you're a coach, first of all, I stuck up for Bill Belichick a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if anybody listened to my take on it. Bill Belichick won a significant amount of championships. Significant amount for the New England Patriots. And yes, he had Tom Brady as his quarterback. We all know the whole situation. Tom Brady goes to Tampa and he wins another championship. Great. But Bill Belichick had a lot to do with the growth of Tom Brady. He had a lot to do with the growth of this organization. And when you look at Bill Belichick and his dominance as a head coach, how many guys has done in 20 years what Bill Belichick has done? As a matter of fact, I would say probably one. And no coach has ever won 6 championships with one team in 20 years. No coach has ever done that. Not in football. Not in the NFL. So the fact that Bill Belichick was the first coach to do that, it says a lot about who he is. I am not a Bill Belichick fan. If anybody knows me on this show, I have thrown Bill Belichick to the wolves many, many times on this show. But it doesn't take away the championships that he's won. It doesn't take the dominance away that he has dominated in the AFC East as long as he has. And to me, he is the only coach that I've seen over the 20 years of coaching and watching football consistently where it doesn't matter what quarterback, what rookie quarterback, what dominant rookie quarterback comes in the league, he dominates against every single one of them. But again, we've heard stories over the last couple of weeks that Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are not getting along. And this has been going on, I've said this, with the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. The Jimmy G thing with Tom Brady. When Tom Brady was supposed to be traded at the time that Jimmy G was over there as the backup quarterback. That Bill Belichick told Robert Kraft he believes that Tom Brady's best years are gone from him and that we could move him and bring Jimmy G in and he could be the future quarterback of this organization and we can probably win multiple championships with Jimmy G. But obviously, Tom Brady had a connection with Robert Kraft. It's like a father figure to him. And Tom Brady practically told Robert Kraft to tell Bill Belichick to push Jimmy G out of there. It's not going to work. Send him to a 49, send him wherever you want. I believe I have more than one more year or 2 more years left in me to win championships. Now, I don't know the whole story. I wasn't in the room. I wasn't the fly on the wall. But every single story that was coming out at that particular time is that Bill Belichick wanted to move forward with Jimmy G. He did not want to move forward with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady and him were not getting along as far as what I've heard over the last really 2-3 years of Tom Brady's time with the Patriots, which made it a little weird at the situation when they moved Jimmy G to the 49ers. And then they bring in Mac Jones. Obviously, Tom Brady goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady wins a championship. They bring in Mac Jones as their 16th pick, and it hasn't worked out. It so far hasn't worked out. Yes, it worked out this week against Buffalo, and I'm sure a lot of Buffalo fans were very surprised that the Patriots shocked everybody by knocking them off. And the Patriots still could win the division. As crazy as that may seem, the Patriots actually could win the division. Because right now, the Patriots have how many wins, Speedy?
2.
They have 2 wins. How many wins does the Jets have?
They have
3. How many wins does the Buffalo Bills
4.
have? How many wins does the Miami Dolphins have?
5.
How many games do they have matched up against those teams that are ahead of them in the division?
The Patriots are 2-0 in the division right now.
Exactly.
And Miami's 1-1. I think Buffalo is 1-2, and the Jets are 1-1.
1-1. So if the Patriots continuously continue winning in the division, and it gets close, and they're only one game behind Miami, or one game behind Buffalo, or one game behind the Jets in the division for the division lead, and they have more wins in the division, that's the tiebreaker. And the Patriots could actually win the division, as crazy as it may seem. And that, moving forward, you would think Bill Belichick knows about and seen this coming. I sit here today, and I don't know what's going to happen in the AFCs. I don't. Honestly, I really don't. But I do know Bill Belichick has a winning record against Miami, a winning record against Buffalo, and a huge winning record against the Jets.
Yep. And again, you're looking at the process of Belichick still being intact. Now, obviously, the injuries this year, so they haven't looked as good with defense, and they've had flaws with the wide receivers, obviously. But somebody that is thinking that they could just coach Mac Jones and make him a top-notch quarterback is going to be very hard to do when Mac Jones has had his own issues this season, too. And that's why all these people making the argument that Belichick only strive because of Brady. Give Belichick Jared Goff or give Belichick Kirk Cousins. He's probably still winning right now, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're probably the number one team right now in the division. I know the defense hasn't played up to par this year, and the running game hasn't been as dominant as it's been the last 2 years, but this team will figure it out. It is Bill Belichick, and he is the king of figuring things out in the second half of the season. So if there's anybody that can find a way to win games that they shouldn't win, it's Bill Belichick.
Right. And you look at the Patriots, the way they're structured, their offensive line has been an injury-prone team this year. Like you're saying, the Patriots secondary, outside of Kyle Duggar and maybe Jack Jones, like nobody's been healthy consistently all year. And it's just very hard to be able to coach anything like that with a quarterback that is probably a bottom five quarterback, starting quarterback-wise in the league. Now, he played well this week against the Bills, but I would say that says more about where the Bills' defenses is with all their injuries right now, too. They are going to be a mess, and they're going to have to do a lot at the trade deadline.
Speedy, let me ask you a question. Jeff says division wins aren't even close to the tiebreaker. Is it not?
If it's two teams, it'll be head-to-head first. But if it's a tie, let's say the Patriots and the Bills tie at 10-7 or something like that, then if that's not the case, if the Patriots and Bills split, then it's division tiebreaker.
So it is the division tiebreaker.
Yeah,
it really is.
That doesn't matter. The division tiebreaker doesn't matter if you're dealing with the wild card. That only matters in the division.
Division, to win the division. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. The Bills, if the Bills sweep the Patriots for the year, yes, the Bills will get the tiebreaker.
He just said that, Jeff. Obviously, it's head-to-head.
Yes, I said that.
He just said that. But it is the main thing that people look at, especially in the division, is how many wins you have in the division. If you're winning the division, you have a very good chance that if you're 10-7, and the other team's 10-7, and yes, if you have, let's say 4 wins in the division, and you've beaten Buffalo once, and Buffalo's beaten you once, but you have more wins in the division, and Buffalo and you both have you've won and they've won, and you have the same record, you win the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm. The division would also be applicable if it was a 3-way tiebreaker, too, where if, say, Miami was a 3-way tie at 10-7 with the Bills and the Patriots, then it would be the division tiebreaker comes into effect there. The division tiebreaker only does not matter for the wild card, and that's where it gets thrown away. But your division ranking still matters first. Even, let's say the Bills and Dolphins were tied with the wild card team, whoever wins the division, the second and third place teams would still be determined in the division first, too.
You know, it's interesting when you hear this story, because I didn't think that Bill Belichick would be back this coming year at the end of this year if he has the season that we thought he was going to have. And yes, they beat Buffalo, and they look like they could beat the Jets again. To me, the Jets are a better team than the Patriots, but the Jets have Zach Wilson. I don't trust Zach Wilson, but they don't play the Patriots, I think, to the final
last week of the season at New England.
Yes. So who knows? Maybe Aaron Rodgers is back by then. I don't know. I don't think so. But I still don't trust Zach Wilson. I don't trust Zach Wilson against the Giants this week. I don't. As a matter of fact, I might pick the Giants to beat the Jets this week.
Yeah, the Giants defense has played well the last couple of weeks.
So I can't trust that Zach Wilson is going to put up the numbers and keep the Jets up offensively. I do believe their defense could, but I don't trust their offense. And I don't even trust their running game against this Giants defense.
Right.
So That's the question. But I'm not getting into the Jets. We're not talking about the Jets right now. We're talking about Bill Belichick. What I am going to say about the Bill Belichick story is I don't believe him and Robert Kraft are getting along. I don't think they've been getting along for a while. The fact is you can't fire a coach that's won multiple championships.
Right.
Multiple championships.
And Robert Kraft, I think, is different because Robert Kraft is still going to go on and go for the flash, too. That's the reason he kept Tom Brady, too. Tom Brady was coming off the year where in maybe a longer season, he might have won MVP in 2016. And 2017, obviously, he won MVP. And Bill Belichick was thinking differently. He wants to say, all right, let's go try to trade Tom Brady at his highest peak because obviously nobody was going to expect him to play this well until he was 40. And it was really only the 2019 season, this last year with the Patriots, where he started to fall off a little bit. And Bill Belichick's always going to have that kind of forward thinking with everything. And he likes to trade players ahead of schedule. Try to get good value back, like Jeff has always said for years. He traded Jamie Collins.
Who cares what Jeff says, honestly?
He traded Jamie Collins.
Who the hell's Jeff? We've had analysts from the Patriots, from different writers and different companies that have been on the show that said the same thing. We don't care what Jeff says. Who the hell is Jeff?
Even so, when you look at the Patriots trend, though, they trade the players earlier, and they're probably going to think that way if they decide to consider selling at the deadline, too. Now, you're right. Maybe with their win against the Bills, maybe they won't consider that way now, but it's still going to be a hard road to climb, especially with these other talented teams in the AFC, too, to be able to do that. But even so, they trust Belichick in the process enough to give him this level of a contract.
I think moving forward this season, and there's a lot to get into as the second half starts for obviously the Jets and Buffalo will go on their bye week, and there's still teams. Miami still needs to go on their bye week. I think even the Patriots have to go through their bye week. So once their bye week comes, it'll be their second half. The Jets are going into their second half. So now they're playing consistently for the rest of the season. So moving forward, I want to see what the Patriots are going to do. I don't think this running game has been as good as it's been over the years, but again, that could change when the games start to get easier and the back-to-back start to get easier for the Patriots. But it's an interesting story how this came out all of a sudden when everybody was talking about maybe parting ways with Bill Belichick, when it doesn't seem like that's going to happen in the offseason. Even if the Jets win out the division, or the Buffalo Bills win out the division, or even Miami wins out the division, and the Patriots don't even make the playoffs for a back-to-back years, which we haven't seen in a very long time. I still believe now you have to believe that Bill Belichick will be back next year for at least one more year.
Right. And he's going to get a chance, too, now with a different quarterback, too, because it doesn't seem like Mac Jones will be the answer unless he somehow turns it around in the second half of the season. If the Patriots are still 2-5 and maybe they're on pace to be a 5 or 6 win team, they could draft a quarterback in the first round, too, and have him try in that system, too, whether it's Penix, Bo Nix, somebody like that. They could try to make that work. And if Belichick still is not doing well with that quarterback, then maybe the heads will start turning.
Jim Irsay says that the NFL should have an expanded replay system where all penalty calls are reviewable in the final 2 minutes of the game. He also adds that the NFL the referees admitting they did not make the correct calls at the end of the game will never be enough. There was an illegal contact and a pass interference called on the Colts against the Browns, with the passing interference coming on what looked in the uncatchable ball. With the NFL also partnering with the gambling companies now, they can face congressionally actions if they cross the line with bad calls at the end of the games. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero says that the officials are prohibited to commit publicly on discussions of calls at the end of the games, which would make Irsay's actions subjectively and obviously fine. Other sports such as the NBA and the MLB have reports that criticize referees and umpires for bad calls, but the NFL doesn't. We've been complaining about the referees all season long, especially with the Kansas City Chiefs. They seem to get every single call. We remember when they played the Jets a couple of weeks ago, the last final plays of the game, especially the Sauce Gardner play. A lot of people were taking shots all over social media at the referees and at the NFL that they didn't do anything about that. Then the week after, I think against Minnesota, Kansas City played, and at the end of the game, the Kansas City Chiefs got another call, which cost Minnesota winning the game and Kansas City losing another game that could have been back-to-back weeks. So I do believe the NFL has favorites. I do. And anybody that doesn't believe that is an idiot. I would say that. Because if you sit back and you wonder where the NFL is going, especially with the referees, and we've had ex-NFL players come on the show and they stick up for the referees. They really do. They always come out and they speak highly of the referees, even though there's a little weed here and there. But obviously, Jim Irsay coming out and saying his piece on this, especially with 2 minutes left of the game, which could be considered a win or a loss for any of these teams that we've spoken about. And throughout this season, they've been a lot of close games at the end, with the 2 minutes left of the game. They're either a touchdown away from winning or 6 points away or a field goal kick away from winning a game. And the referees really control the opportunities for certain teams to come out and maybe pull off a win because of a penalty. And again, the NFL tried to do this with the whole, if you guys remember the Drew Brees, the Drew Brees Saints and the Rams. I think it was the Rams and the Saints in the NFC title game. And the play call, the play that should have been called, which wasn't called, which sent the Rams to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And then the Patriots won their other Super Bowl. But that's a whole nother story. Nevertheless, they tried to change the rules the next year, and then they changed it back because nobody liked the rules. And the NFL has been trying to move forward with all these different rules that they keep adding and stuff like that. And all the leagues, the NHL has tried to add rules, the NBA, and then obviously MLB, changing the bases, changing the pitch clock, shifting, everything. They're trying to make the game better. But is it making the game better? Now, I do believe this will help certain football games. It will. And I think that in what we have seen this year, especially some of the calls and some of the passing interference or nevertheless hitting the quarterback and all that other stuff happening at the end of the game, which cost 15 yards and cost the team a chance to win a game. This could change that. But again, the NFL has to look into it. The NFL and the owners need to agree to this before this moves forward. And I think the NFL should look at this, and this could work moving forward for the NFL.
Yeah, the smartest thing Jim Irsay has ever said in his life is very true, because 2 minutes you can't challenge in the fourth quarter. It automatically goes to boot review. And we've seen so many other things get challenged or get reviewed in that sense too, with catches on the sideline, with fumbles, etc. And you're looking at a borderline type thing in the case of certain calls, but also the obvious ones that should be overturned, like you were saying with the Saints and the Rams. It was blatantly obvious. And in the Browns-Colts game, that was blatantly, obviously uncatchable. It was almost in the stands, that ball. So I could see the backlash for the ones that are obvious calls. I think a lot of people, why they didn't like the pass interferences, because they only challenged the close ones and the ruling on the field was going to stands. I didn't really have a problem with it, but I could see why the NFL did. But like you were saying with the betting, like if they're going to get congressional action involved in the betting, that's going to grow. That's going to diminish them if the betting companies say no and they part ways with the NFL. That's going to lose a lot of value because the NFL is striving right now with betting. Obviously, they're still suspending players, but they're striving with FanDuel and DraftKings and all these other same-day parlays. That's really going to grow their game.
Everything is going to thrive when it comes to betting, because there's money. Kids are betting now. If it becomes legalized throughout the world, throughout the country, and I think it's legalized in 10 states or 12 states.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more now.
Oh, I don't even know. I don't really bet, but there are people out there that play DraftKings and FanDuel and even doing it illegally. As we all know, somebody that listens to the show does it.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Chaz, it's still not legal in California.
Again, it's become such a big thing when it comes to, watching sports. Fantasy sports is all betting. Even though the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, none of those organizations believe that had anything to do with betting. If you look at fantasy sports, people bet on fantasy sports. So you're picking players, you're building your teams, and then moving forward. And by the way, DraftKings has had fantasy, and so has FanDuel. So people play day by day fantasy basketball, fantasy football, and then week by week. So it's been going on a long, long time, but now betting is becoming more legalized, especially here in New York, where it's bringing in millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year. And now it eventually will turn from 50 states and all that other stuff, and it's going to bring in more money for these leagues and for all these new CBA numbers that they could bring in and more money bringing in for these leagues. So I think Jim Irsay coming out and speaking up about the replay system is very interesting because I didn't think he was going to be the first person to speak. I thought it maybe Jerry Jones would speak or one of the more popular or hated guys. I mean, Jim Irsay is loved by the Indianapolis Colts fans, and he is a guy that has had, his name has been all over the tabloids over the years, as we all know. But nevertheless, he doesn't usually speak out unless there's controversy. And now he brings this out. People are agreeing with him. It's not controversial, but is the NFL going to listen to it? Are the other owners going to listen to this where they can vote and this can move forward?
Right. And there's obviously a sense of these progression with technology too, where you see the NHL and the MLB both have universal replay centers to challenge calls too. The umpires in baseball call in Chelsea. The NHL umpires call, or referees call in Toronto. The NFL can have something like that. They have all the money in the world. They can have something like that to have it be universal, a neutral referee, a veteran referee that maybe doesn't want to do on-field stuff anymore, to be able to review those calls too. And again, I don't mind the challenges either that they took away that Sean Payton wanted either. If you have 2 challenges in a game. If you want to use one of them for a penalty, you should be able to. Like, it makes no sense. I know that you're trying to stall the game, but still, it's a progression in the right direction. So you don't have these kinds of things costing teams.
You should be able to use it at any time. It doesn't matter. If you should be able to call a timeout and challenge any play in the game. Passing interference, hitting the quarterback, you should be able to challenge it. Because to me, that would have helped a lot of these calls, especially the Jets against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you could challenge that with Sauce Gardner, maybe the Jets win the challenge and they win the game.
Right.
And that could change everything. Kansas City has won at least 3 games this year. 3 games this year because of referees' calls in the fourth quarter. It's been going on all season long. And I think the referees have a lot to do with it. That doesn't mean that it's only the referee's fault. It's the coach's fault, as we have seen. There have been absolutely terrible calls by some of these coaches, especially Robert Saleh. I'd be the first person to tell you, as a Jet fan, some of the timeouts that Robert Saleh picked out at the weird times and throwing the red flag for no damn reason when everybody knows the ball hit the ground. So there are things that we have seen coaches do, and you would question why they did it. But again, that's what makes the game more interesting. And I think the challenges should be added to the game. I really do. I don't know why they took it away. It was working out. I thought it did work, but a lot of the coaches in the league when it was going on didn't like it because you could say you can challenge anything you want.
Right. And again, there's no, you have not a reason to add a challenge either. Too. You don't have to say, all right, now you get 4 challenges because we're allowing to challenge referees. No, 2 challenges in a game, I think is fair. And then if you win both of them, you get a 3rd challenge. Like, you have to earn it the right way. If it's a call that's that egregious, like the Browns-Colts game, like, that should be overturned within seconds. Like, you should be able to challenge that. The illegal contact one, that was a little borderline, so I could see why the Browns got the benefit of the doubt there. But you're looking at an obviously egregious call that should be overturned within seconds. And coaches have tried to manipulate that for years too, because you can't challenge them in the final 2 minutes. But still, they should be reviewed right away.
ESPN reports that Michigan's sign stealing operations was led by staff member Connor Stalions, a low-level staff member with a military background. Stalions reportedly led an elaborate operations of an in-person scouting system in order to decode opponents' play signals. On his LinkedIn page that is now deleted, Stalions admitted in May of 2022 to using Marine Corps philosophies and tactics to identify the opponent's most likely course of action and most dangerous course of action. Stalions worked as a volunteer assistant with Michigan since 2015, the first year Jim Harbaugh coached for them. ESPN reports that Stalions purchased tickets for 30 games for 11 different schools throughout the last 3 years. Michigan has made the college football playoff each of the last 2 years, after never making it for the first 6 years of Harbaugh's coaching tenure. So I don't know what is true and what is not. But when Stallion has come out and said it and then erased it on LinkedIn, it says a lot about who he is and what Jim Harbaugh has been doing over the last couple of years. And I don't know if other teams are doing it. We all know the Patriots did it with Spygate, and Roger Goodell got rid of tapes, and nobody really got a chance to see it but the Patriots, Robert Kraft, and Roger Goodell. And a lot of the owners at the time wanted to see the tapes because they wanted to see how bad they were. But Roger Goodell, for some reason, got rid of the tapes and washed away with them, burned them, or whatever the hell he said what he did with them. I don't know if there's tapes on this. I don't know. And I don't know anything about Stalions. I don't know his background. I understand he was, he was a soldier, whatever. He was a Marine, whatever he was. And he used those philosophies and tactics to steal signs. Who cares? Honestly. And I don't know if that's going to change the fact that over the last 2 years, the Michigan Wolverines have made the playoffs because of it. What I do know is Jim Harbaugh has been caught not once, but twice for cheating in the last 2 years. 2 years. And last year, with everything that was going on, and Michigan going to the playoff again, and then losing, and then trying at the end in the offseason, trying to find a way to make excuses for everything that happened during the season, only speaks volume about who Jim Harbaugh is. And then Jim Harbaugh interviewing for jobs over the last 2 years in the NFL, which I believe no matter what happens with this story, which they're probably going to be sanctioned, and Michigan's probably not going to be able to play in a championship title game for the next 5 years if this is true. Which means, what is Jim Harbaugh going to do after signing an extension last year?
And again, that's what should happen too, because they used resources way out of their control too. If this guy Stalions is using military technology, which is not available to civilians, like you can't just go out there and buy weapons that and spy tactics that these military corps have, Marine Corps have, etc., and use it for public benefit. That is illegal for anybody, not just football teams, etc. And Jim Harbaugh now striving on that the last 2 years in a college football playoff that's relatively close too. It's not like Michigan got in super easily. And that kind of thing maybe shows a little bit of shadiness because they always were losing the big games, whether it was Penn State or Ohio State.
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think sign stealing had anything to do with their dominance in their division or them going into the playoffs. I don't really think it does. Now, I understand maybe certain signs at the end of the game in the fourth quarters might have helped them in some kind of way. But throughout the game, I don't think they're stealing signs throughout the game. I mean, it's going to be very, very hard on every single play to steal signs.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's happening for every game. I'm not saying it's going to have every impact because Michigan will still blow teams out too. They blew out Ohio State in both meetings in the last 2 years too. I'm not saying that them stealing signs was the only reason they won those games by 15 to 20 points. But still, certain instances they definitely have to be a little suspicious of when it comes to Michigan really struggling against these other opponents.
Just so everybody knows, Speedy is sick, so he's trying to breathe while he's speaking. I'm coming off being sick as well, so we're both trying to do a show and breathe at the same time. Speedy, if you can't finish the sentence, don't finish the sentence. I mean, obviously you're using all the ability that you can to speak, but it's hard to fill in those blanks. But going back to this, I question right now what Michigan is going to do in the offseason. Because if Jim Harbaugh gets it, because of everything that's happened in the last 2 years, and this team gets sanctioned, Jim Harbaugh is not going to stay in Michigan because I don't think he wanted the Denver job. I know he interviewed for the Denver job in the offseason. Sean Payton got the job because the fact that Jim Harbaugh didn't want it. And I don't believe that the Denver Broncos wanted to give up their only first-round draft pick this past year. I don't. And they got that from Miami. And they traded away their other 2 first-round draft picks for Russell Wilson, which hasn't worked. Jim Harbaugh is not going to stay there. So what happens in the offseason? And this is what's happened before. We've seen this before. Pete Carroll did the same thing to USC. He knew that the team was going to be sanctioned for all the things that he did over the years. So what did he do? He fled. He left USC and he went to Seattle. He won a championship. He's been a successful NFL coach after his 3rd time. I know he was coaching the Patriots. He coached the Jets for a little bit, and then he went to college ball. It never worked out. In the time that he had as a head coach, he went to play, he went and coached in college for a couple of years, won a couple of national championships with USC, with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, and then he goes back to the NFL, and then he becomes a good coach or a dominant coach over the last year and the oldest coach right now in the NFL. So I don't know what the NCAA is going to do to Michigan, but this, again, is the second time Jim Harbaugh and his staff has been caught.
And again, you also look at the operations of cheating we've seen in other leagues. We talked about it all the time with the Astros using the buzzers, using the trash cans, using all the cameras, etc. The Patriots using the cameras to cheat in the videotapes. This is military technology. That's even far more elaborate than everything else. And you're right, Jim Harbaugh has all this money. He definitely could be funding that kind of thing too. And it looks like at this point, he might even just play out not even half of his contract at this point. And I do think he'll get another NFL job. It'll probably be a team like the Raiders, the flashy team.
I don't think he's going to the Raiders. I don't. I know the Raiders would definitely bring him in if Josh McDaniels gets fired. And Josh McDaniels was a flashy name, and it didn't work. It didn't work. So why bring in Jim Harbaugh? Why are you going to bring in another flashy name that might not work there? I think Jim is going to interview for quite a few jobs that become available in the offseason. He is going to go to the best job that has the best chance to get a young quarterback because he's been in college ball for the last couple of years, and he can make his pick on who he wants to be his quarterback moving forward. Maybe his quarterback right there.
Yeah, he's draft eligible this year too. A lot of people think he's a first-round pick. So JJ McCarthy, I'm not as high on him for the NFL, but that definitely makes sense.
I mean, so I don't know where Jim Harbaugh is, what he's going to plan to do in the offseason, but I'm going to tell you, this team is going to be sanctioned. They're going to be sanctioned for this, especially that Stalions has come out and said it and then erased it on LinkedIn. Knowing that, he's only thrown the team under the bus. He's thrown Jim Harbaugh under the bus, which means by the end of this season, even if, let's say, Michigan wins the national championship, let's say they get in and they win the national championship, it could be taken away from them.
Oh, yeah. And as it should be if they catch even more, too. Because who says Stalions was the only one either? We know about these athletic departments. They can go deep with all these scandals, too, to cover everything up, too. Look at what's happened with Michigan State the last couple of years. The gymnastics coach and Nasser, and now recently with Mel Tucker with his domestic violence issues as well.
It's a very interesting story, and I believe by the end of the season, this will grow legs. I don't think Michigan's winning the national championship. I still think it's Georgia. I mean, they've been the dominant force, and they have the easiest schedule. And so far, what we see, and by the way, congratulations to Ohio State. Everybody asked me, one of my friends came to me and asked me, who do you have, Penn State or Ohio State this week? And I said Ohio State. I know everybody had Penn State.
I did, yeah.
But I had Ohio State. And one of the main reasons why is because I still think Ohio State is a superpower right now in college ball. They don't have a superpower quarterback, but when do they do? I mean, Justin Fields was a good quarterback, and obviously over the last couple of years, C.J. Stroud, who looks like he's going to be a pretty good NFL quarterback. I don't know. And it really has everything to do with the defense, the offense, and the running games. And I think, but listen, their quarterback isn't the greatest quarterback, but they do have Marvin Harrison Jr. And Marvin Harrison Jr. might not be the first wide receiver drafted in this class. So I know everybody keeps thinking that it to be true. The LSU wide receiver's pretty damn good too.
Right. And even Ibuka, their second guy on their own team too, has been very good for the last 3 years.
Well, he's not going to be drafted over Marvin Harrison.
It just shows how good they are with wide receivers.
Yes. And Ohio State has been. Garrett Wilson, you want Olave, we could go up and down. Yeah. Every year they have somebody coming out and going into the NFL that is a good wide receiver. So we'll see. Smith Jigba, he was drafted by Seattle. He finally had his best game last week, but maybe because DK Metcalf wasn't in the lineup. So who knows what happens? Maybe they decide to move past Tyler Lockett in the offseason and move Smith Jigba into that spot. So what I saw this week, and I actually picked him up in one of my league, Jigba actually played very, very well. So it's interesting. I do believe Ohio State is the best program when it comes to finding wide receivers. No question that they are. All right, so let's go to the Giannis story, because it seems like it is a story that I was very shocked about. I was doing a podcast on Monday with Lyle Gillian, who, shout out to Lyle. And I brought up Giannis, and I did not know that Giannis got an extension by Milwaukee. And then he said, well, Giannis just signed an extension today. And then reading the story after the show, it's a very lucrative contract for 3 years. As a matter of fact, it's the biggest contract besides his partner over there, Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard was making $60 million a year for a 2-year deal with the Portland Trailblazers. He made last year, I think it was like $75 million. He's making less this year, but it was 120 for 2 years, and it was the biggest contract in NBA history. This contract for 3 years is definitely the biggest contract in a 3-year skid.
Oh yeah,
in the NBA history. Woj reports that Giannis signed a 3-year, $186 million contract extension with the Bucks. The contract will begin in 2025 season. Giannis will make $45.6 million this year and $48.7 million next year, and had a chance to opt out after that. Giannis also told reporters that he signed the extension without knowing the exact numbers of the contract, saying that he just wanted to be a Milwaukee Buck. The Bucks recently traded for Damian Lillard, who is on his final year of his contract, making $45.6 million this season, and has a player option for the season worth $48.8 million. Lillard told Fox Sports that his situation with the Bucks, the best basketball situation for me. Lillard averaged 32.2 points per game, 7.3 assists per game, and 4.8 assists per game last season. Giannis averaged 31.1 points per game, 11.8 rebounds per game, and 5.7 assists per game last season. Here's the thing. I don't think Giannis cared if Damian Lillard came back next year, because to me, he wasn't happy that Jrue Holiday was traded for him. I do believe he knows that Damian Lillard is a better offensive option than Jrue Holiday. He's not a better defensive option, but he's a better offensive option. And to me, if you put them together, who's a better player? You probably say Damian Lillard, but he's also the older player. Not by much, but he is the older player. When you look at both players and you try to compare them, I think Jrue Holiday going to Boston makes sense. I did not believe Damian Lillard going to Milwaukee made sense. You're adding another offensive option. You're taking the ball out of your best player's hands, which makes no sense. Everybody was pitching the ball to Giannis. Is Damian Lillard going to do that after all these years being the number one option in Portland, even with CJ McCollum there and the team that they've had over the years? It doesn't make sense. The reason why Milwaukee made a move like that is because they were reaching. And they were trying to tell Giannis, we're going to give you the best option and the best opportunity to win a title this year. Win, lose, or draw. Now you look at it, and you look at Damian Lillard going into the season, you look at their bench. They don't have much of a bench. They traded away a lot of pieces. And are they a better team than they were last year? It really doesn't matter, because Giannis was the guy. You wanted to pull Giannis in to sign that extension. You don't have to worry about that anymore because he signed the extension. So Damian Lillard playing this year, if Damian Lillard doesn't go to the finals and win a championship this year, where do you think he's going? He's going to the Miami Heat. As we heard Miami bitching and moaning when this happened, because Pat Riley said, I thought we gave a better deal. Meanwhile, they were only offering Tyler Hero.
Yeah, you gave a better deal. You always try to fleece teams. Nice try.
And then Jimmy Butler went out there talking to the press saying that the NBA should investigate the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, because tampering never happened before with players behind the scenes.
Tampering never happened with Pat Riley, huh? Yeah. With LeBron James and, I don't know, Chris Bosh with Dwayne Wade. That wasn't tampered? Come on, guys. Now, the NBA has always been a players' league. We all know that. The players run the league. And Damian Lillard just wanted to get the hell out of Portland because he knew he had no chance of winning there. But Portland made a move, bringing in Scoot Henderson in the draft to help Damian Lillard out. That's why they brought Scoot in, because they thought he would be the best fit to play with Damian Lillard for the next few years if Damian stays there. Damian decides to flee. After the draft, he told the Portland Trailblazers that he wants out. After he came out last year, or even 2 years ago, when he was playing for Team USA, saying that he will never do that. He wants to be a Portland Trailblazer for life.
And again, he's had the loyalty of that you don't see a lot of these players in his generation, the NBA have, which is a good thing. But still, the timing of that was very weird too. And I agree with you. If Damian Lillard and Giannis don't play well together, he's definitely leaving after this season. So that made Giannis's extension doing it now very imperative because 3 years, 186 is all the money they can get. The contract starts in 2025, and it gets away from anything that if Damian Lillard and Giannis don't get along, that both of them force their way out, or both of them make everything uncomfortable for Milwaukee. If Milwaukee moves on from Dame, they'll probably just go trade for another max contract like that.
Well, they'll have room for it
Yeah,
if they decide, or if Damian Lillard decides to go to Miami or wherever he decides to go next season, because he's a restricted free agent. He could go wherever he wants. I still believe that they can bring in another guy or trade. I don't know if they're going to be able to trade for another guy because they traded away their pieces that they could have traded for next year for a superstar player. So that's not going to happen. But they could bring in a free agent if somebody becomes available and wants to play with Giannis. But the whole point of bringing Damian Lillard in here was to get Giannis to sign the extension. And Giannis was going to sign the extension no matter what, which a lot of people thought was not going to happen until the end of the season. So I was very surprised with this story when it happened because he had a lot of options. He wanted to play in a big market. If Milwaukee wasn't going to work, maybe he goes to the Knicks, maybe he goes to LA, maybe he goes to Miami, maybe he goes to another big market where, and it doesn't really matter anymore because what market you play for, because there's still endorsements, there's still money to be made. But again, a lot of these players want to go into the play for the biggest stage and play for one of these big organizations to help them win a championship. And that's something that makes them sacred. As we all know, when a championship is never or hasn't been won for teams in such a long time, like the Knicks since the 70s, and you go over there and you become the savior, like Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. They haven't won a championship in 53 years. If he wins a championship, they build a statue of you. So that's why a lot of these players in the primes of their careers or the tail end of their career, they want to go to that team where they become a god. And Giannis maybe was thinking about that, but obviously had no thoughts of doing it.
Right. And you also look at this generation of NBA players. So we were talking about it last week, the way the players have forced their way out and demanded trades with James Harden and Jimmy Butler and all these guys we talked about in the past too. And it's really that generation, this younger generation of these next wave of NBA superstars, they're signing with their teams right away. Nikola Jokic did that last year. The next year they won a championship. Giannis did it 2 years ago, winning a championship in 2021 after signing a big deal. Luka Doncic, Trae Young, etc. All these guys signed early, and that is a big key to their loyalty. So like you're saying, they are going to get the marketing anyway. They're going to get the training anyway. These other things in New York and LA, they can go visit there in the off season and stuff like that. They'll get those endorsements everywhere else. And teams realize that now, and stars realize that now. Just sign these guys right away. Don't make everything so dramatic, and you'll be able to get your wish.
NBA players are all about dramaticness, okay? They're all dramatic, every single one of them. They complain, they cry, they scratch, they scream, they bite your ear off, as we see LeBron James do it every single game to the referees. And so does Kyrie Irving and James Harden and Julius Randle and every single NBA player that is a superstar or star player in this league. They want to get every single call. And the same thing when it comes to money. These are guaranteed contracts. These are not football contracts. If you're getting a 3-year extension worth about $186 million, that's guaranteed money. Win, lose, or draw. If you play or you don't play, you're getting that money. And Giannis signing that extension only gives Milwaukee the option in the offseason, if they lose Damian Lillard, to bring in another star to play with him. So if you're a Milwaukee Buck fan, you should be very happy with this. I do not believe Giannis had any thoughts on the reason why he signed this extension because Damian Lillard is there. I think he had plans to doing this. I think he just wanted to wait and see what Milwaukee was going to do in the offseason before he decided to give the okay to extend this. And by the way, he didn't even know he was getting $186 million.
That was crazy.
He just said, I'm willing to sign the 3-year extension. And then they told him, well, we're going to give you $186 million. So, I mean, why are you going to cry about that? I mean, Giannis came from nothing. This guy in the last 12 years in the NBA, or 11 years in the NBA, he's made over $350 million.
Yeah, what were you saying? He was going to stay in Greece if he didn't get drafted by top 12 or something like that?
Well, if you watch the story on Disney, and they made a movie, whatever it was, a series. Oh, it wasn't a series. It was a movie. It was one episode. So it was a movie. If he wasn't drafted in the top 16, he would have to go back to Greece, and he would have to play in Greece. That he had to be drafted in the top 16 to even be thought of making an NBA team. Well, he was drafted 16 to the Milwaukee Bucks, and Milwaukee took a chance on him, and boy, oh boy, they hit a home run on it. They won a championship. They almost won another championship with him and could have won multiple championships with him. And now they still have him. He'll probably finish his career over there in Milwaukee because 3 years from now, he'll be 34 years old,
Right.
35. He'll be at the tail end. He's a big man. How many years does he have left? So I think Giannis's plan was to play for one team and one organization, the same organization that drafted him and the organization that took his family in and took care of his family when they had nothing. So I'm happy for Giannis. I'm happy that he stuck with one team. Damian Lillard said he was going to do that. It didn't work out. And now Damian is going to play. By the way, in the All-Star game last year, when LeBron was against Giannis and they were picking their teams, who did Giannis pick number one? Damian Lillard. So, and that's the difference right now. But again, we'll see what happens moving forward with Damian Lillard and Giannis. You have anything to say on it?
Yeah, I was going to say, you look at a case of Damian Lillard being the only one really of that generation, too, that actually stayed with his team for a while, too. Like, even LeBron, he stays with the team for 4 years, then he'll flee. Even with the Heat, like, it was 4 years and he was gone, too. Kevin Durant was there with the Thunder for a while, but once he started going away from the Thunder, he's been on 4 different teams since then, too. Damian Lillard is the one I think that deserves an exception, but hopefully Giannis can keep this trend going, too, with these younger superstars getting these contracts right away, too, and not forcing the drama with the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Philadelphia Inquirer, Keith Pompey, reports that Leon Rose has made Joel Embiid his number one priority for a trade. The Knicks would reportedly trade Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier, Mitchell Robinson, and 2 or 3 first-round picks. Reports say Joel Embiid says he is unsure if he thinks of the 76ers as a title contender amidst the trade rumors of James Harden. Hoops Hype also reports that the Miami Heat have expressed interest in Embiid. Embiid has 3 years and $154 million left on his contract. Embiid won an MVP last season, averaging 33.1 points per game, 10.2 rebounds per game, and 4.2 assists per game. Of course, Miami's in the conversation. Miami's in the conversation for whatever the Knicks are in the conversation for, because Pat Riley wants to screw the Knicks. He's been doing it for years, and every time he goes after a player that the Knicks are interested in, he gets him. So I think this is a different time because I think Leon Rose knows what he's doing and how he is going to drive these players to want to come to New York and play with some of these guys. The problem is it's too much. If you're going to give up Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier, I don't give a crap. Mitchell Robinson, I could understand why you're going to put him in a trade. In 2 or 3 first-round draft picks, you're practically giving away your starting lineup. You're giving away 3 of your top 5 guys in your starting lineup. It doesn't make sense. Yes, Joel Embiid is a great player. Yes, he was the MVP of the year last year. And I understand. By the way, he was crying that if he didn't win the MVP last year, as everybody remembers. So, well-deserved. If he wants to cry more, he can cry. If he wants to cry that he wants to be a Knick, I won't cry about it. But I will say this, if I'm the Knicks, I'm not offering my whole team and trading away all these pieces for one player who, by the way, has been injury-prone his whole life. He's had knee problems, he's had ankle problems, and he's a big man who just hit the age of 30. And he still has 3 years left on a big contract, which, by the way, you have to pay. So I sit here, if I'm the Knicks GM, I have to sit back and Leon Rose is not even the GM, he's the president. And if I'm sitting back and I'm wondering, my team is one player away. If you trade Julius Randle and RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson, you could be 2 players away.
Mm-hmm. There's only one player I would trade that much for, and that's Luka Doncic, because Luka Doncic is at least young, he's great in the playoffs, and he's durable. Joel Embiid is streaky in the playoffs. Yeah, he won an MVP. He's been great the last 4 years and actually been healthy there the last 4 years, but is still very injury prone too. And has disappeared later in series a lot too. And that's the one thing that worries me. A lot of these other players leave Philadelphia too. So there's the whole question of chemistry. How good of a teammate is Embiid really? Obviously, Harden's not a great teammate anyway, no matter where he goes. But then you had Ben Simmons. You had all these issues with a lot of these other veteran players too. And that's the thing I question with somebody like Embiid, which is why I was out on Embiid in the first rumor in June when it was first brought up.
You know what's so funny? Everybody keeps talking about Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns. And I asked Josh Silverberg, I said, who would you go with if you had a chance to get one or the other? And he said he would go with Embiid. And he wouldn't go with any of them, but if he had a chance to go with one or the other, he'd go with Embiid. You won't have to give up as much for Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns, you're not going to have to give up Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Evan Fournier, Mitchell Robinson, and 2 or 3 first-round draft picks. As good as Karl Anthony Towns is, he is not an MVP candidate, and he didn't average 33.1 points per game last year. He averaged, I think, was 23 or 24. So he's a great player, and he wants to play in New York. He grew up a Knicks fan. He grew up in New Jersey. I understand the whole qualifications of who he is as a player and what he can do. I think that if I was running the New York Knicks, I put all my eggs into Karl Anthony Towns, and I'll tell you why. Karl Anthony Towns, you probably would only have to give up Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and maybe a first. Or you could trade Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, and a first for Karl Anthony Towns. You take on that contract. You get rid of Julius Randle's contract for 1 more year because he has 1 more year left on the contract. RJ Barrett just signed a 4-year extension worth about $100 and some odd million. You get rid of that contract. And Mitchell Robinson just signed a 4-year, $60 million contract. So all that equals Karl Anthony Towns' extension, which is added on after next year. I think it's 4 years. So which worth about almost 170 or 180 million. So if you add it all together, it's almost not equal, but obviously the Minnesota Timberwolves would have to add a player in that trade to make it work. But you wouldn't have to give up this much for him. So I understand that a lot of Knicks fans looking at Joel Embiid, that makes sense. Oh, I want Joel Embiid. He's the MVP of the league. We have seen New York teams bring in MVP players in the past, including the New York Yankees. And I'm not taking shots at Giancarlo Stanton, but he was the MVP from the Marlins when he came to the New York Yankees. And even though he did okay, he didn't have that season that he had. He hasn't had a season like that since then. So that says a lot about what teams think of certain players. Now, again, going back to the fact that the Knicks are looking for that next superstar, I do believe no matter what happens, they're going to get Donovan Mitchell. No matter what happens, one way or another, this year, next year, or the year after, Donovan Mitchell will be a Knick. He wants to be a Knick. All off-season, he's here in New York. He's from this area. Grew up a Knick fan. His father is a diehard Knick fan. He wants to play here. He's good friends with Jalen Brunson. It makes a lot of sense. He might ask to be traded at the trade deadline this year if the Cavaliers don't have the season that the second year over there after losing against the Knicks in the first round. I don't know. But what I do know is if you bring in Karl Anthony Towns and Donovan Mitchell with Jalen Brunson and you give up a significant amount of pieces, is that roster as good as the Boston Celtics? Is that roster as good as the Milwaukee Bucks or the Miami Heat? I think they're better than Miami. Are they better than Milwaukee with Damian Lillard? Probably with the depth that the Knicks have on the bench, maybe by very little. And no way they're better than Boston. So to make these moves, is it a smart move by the New York Knicks? And the Knicks have to be very smart and strategic with this because over the years, they put all their eggs in somebody's basket, a.k.a. Carmelo Anthony and Amari Stoudemire, bringing him here and giving him $100 million. He had one good season. You bring Carmelo in. He drew Carmelo, and it never worked. They had one good season with 54 wins, and they lose against Indianapolis where, hey, if they matched up against Miami in the conference finals, they were 3-4 that year against Miami. Maybe they give Miami more of a challenge than Indiana did. So I just, there's so many things that you have to look at if you're a Knicks fan. And again, I just don't know. Bringing up Karl Anthony Towns' name or Joel Embiid makes a lot of sense. I think if Devin Booker becomes available, I would put all my eggs in Devin Booker's basket.
Yeah,
because he's a wing guy. He's a wing shooter, something that the Knicks have been horrible at over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, the Knicks were the worst three-point shooter in the NBA, shooting team in the NBA last year.
Yeah, and they were one of the worst in the playoffs too when it comes to both percentage and volume-wise. And you need that kind of thing to be able to win a championship. I'm not saying you have to build your team like the Golden State Warriors, but at least have some guys that could shoot threes. And that's why when you look at this trade package for Joel Embiid, yes, he's a good three-point shooter, but it also seems like Daryl Morey's last-ditch effort to try to get some kind of value when he knows he's not getting anything for James Harden. And the Knicks cannot be the team to fall into that kind of trap when you have all these assets. You have a lot of assets. Besides OKC, they have the second most assets, and they could use that for anybody.
And that's the thing. And here's the thing. We're going into the NBA season now, and we're trying to figure out who's our winners and who's our losers this year. And they have that tournament in December, which absolutely makes no sense.
It's meaningless.
The Knicks are playing December 4th and December 5th or something. The schedule came out the other day about it, and I don't like it because if one of our players gets hurt, if the Knicks If the Knicks lose a player in that tournament, the Knicks are screwed. And I would say that about a lot of these teams. The Boston Celtics, if they're in the tournament and they play in the tournament, you're putting your team at risk. You're playing more games. What are you getting for it if you win this tournament? What do you get for it? Do you get extra wins?
Yeah, I think it's just money.
Money? Do any of these players need to make that kind of money? Seriously, they're making millions of dollars. And I know what you're going to say. Hey, some of the bench players aren't making that money. An average bench player in the NBA is making over $1 million, and they're not even playing. Okay? These rookies are making a ton of money. So what does it matter if they win in this tournament? I think it's a stupid move by the NBA. I really do.
Yeah, it's only really beneficial for those younger teams that know they're going to be really bad. But even then, you still have some surprises. Like a young team like OKC, they could be a top 16 in the Western Conference this year. The Western Conference is very top heavy.
And with the Eastern Conference, there's a lot of questions with the Eastern Conference. Atlanta could be very good this year. They have a bunch of good young players playing together this last season and now going into the new season. And to me, I think there's a lot of questions with the other teams, like the Chicago Bulls. They had a bad season last year, but they still have a very good roster. And maybe they just had an off year. Maybe going into the new season, I like Donovan. I think Billy Donovan is one of the best coaches in the NBA. And maybe this roster this year with Lonzo Ball healthy will be different.
And if they keep Zach LaVine too, the amount of talent that they could have in that front end too. The question is with their rookies, because they haven't really drafted well recently too. But you're right, they were giving Milwaukee fits in the playoffs the year before that too. So there's definitely some growth with this team too.
They gave the Knicks fits all the time.
The Knicks fits throughout the regular season. I think they won on a buzzer beater last year against the Knicks. So yeah, there's definitely some upside with the Eastern Conference too, where it might be a little more well-rounded. But like the West, it's still kind of top heavy. It's the Celtics, Bucks, and everyone else.
Josh just said the tournament goes towards regular season records.
So, well, yeah, it's built into the regular season, but still, like, do they have to really structure it that way?
I don't like it.
Yeah,
I really don't like it. Why are you having a tournament in the middle of the season when you're not getting anything for it? Now, if you win the tournament and it gives you an opportunity to make the playoffs automatically, that's something that you could play for. That's something that I would want to play for because that gives me an opportunity. If I win this tournament, I'm automatically going to be the 8th seed. Automatically. That would make sense on why I want to play. Right now, this doesn't make sense. And if I'm a Knicks fan and I lose a player like Jalen Brunson in this tournament, or I lose any of my players in this tournament, that would piss me off.
Right. And we were talking about it last week with low management too. Like, is that the games you're going to want to play in if you're playing in this play-in tournament too? Or are you just going to incentivize these games more for these players too, when that could be the game that they're resting? If the Knicks have a tournament game against, say, the Orlando Magic, who aren't that good, is that the game you would want to give Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle low management for? But the NBA is not going to care because it's their tournament.
And Josh is right. It's stupid, but people will tune in. People are going to tune into anything because people want to bid. They want to. It's a betting world now. And if you're in a state or you're in a part of the state that you can bet, or if you're playing illegally, you're going to bet these tournaments. So of course they're going to tune in and watch it. But if you're a fan of a certain team and you know they're injured, they're an injury-prone team, or you have a player that's injured and he's going to play in this tournament because, hey, I have a chance to win more. I can win more money or whatever. It puts them at harm's way, and I don't think it's right. I think the NBA needs to look at this. If they're going to play a play-in tournament every single year, there has to be some stipulations to it, and there has to be something that you absolutely can win at the end of the tournament. If you win this tournament, you're automatically the 8th seed.
Right. And we were talking about it with betting too. Like maybe we'll get to that with our betting guys down the road when maybe they're betting some of the play-in tournament games in December too. But still, there's going to be betting strategy that could change from that. Fine. But I think anyone betting on that would have thought the same way with a regular season game. And any NBA fan that would have watched this tournament game too would still be watching this NBA tournament active.
My preview for the New York Knicks, and I spoke about this on the Cross Island podcast. It's very interesting because I don't know what the Knicks are. I don't know what they're going to be this year. We all know what the Celtics are going to be with Drew Holiday on that roster and Porzingis. If they stay healthy, they're going to be very hard to beat because they have a tremendous bench and they have a great starting five. And it's going to be very hard to compete with them. Right now, the Knicks are competing with them. Look, Porzingis right now is 15 points. He's 5 for 8.
Of course, he's playing well against the Knicks.
He's playing well against the Knicks, and he's in Madison Square Garden. And by the way, he wanted to own a piece of the New York Knicks.
Of course he did.
Him and his brother. But that hasn't happened anywhere else he's gone. Did he ask Dallas to do that? Did he ask the Celtics to do that? Or how about, did he ask the Wizards to do that? No, just the Knicks.
Maybe Caleb Williams should hire Kristaps Porzingis' brother. Maybe he'll get his wish of his NFL team.
Maybe. But you look at this roster for the New York Knicks. Dante DiVincenzo. Everybody likes this kid. He played for Milwaukee. He was traded to Golden State last year. And then he's a Villanova kid. He's 26 years old. And they didn't have to give him a huge payday. It really wasn't. It made sense on what they gave him. I think it was like a 3 or 4 year deal worth about $70-something million. I question what they did with Obi Toppin. I don't understand why they didn't get anything for him. They got a second-round draft pick for a guy that they drafted in the top 5 a couple of years ago who actually looked pretty good when he was playing at the end of the season. So it made no sense. And everybody says, well, he didn't look good in the preseason. Preseason and the regular season are 2 different games of basketball. But I look at this team, I look at this roster. This roster just doesn't stick out to me, okay? I like Quinn Grimes. Me and Josh talk about him all the time. He could be a Devin Booker lookalike. I don't know. I don't know. We know he can shoot, but could he play strategically? Could he play every single game statistically like Devin Booker can? Devin Booker is going to give you 20 points a game. Is Quentin Grimes going to do that every single week, every single game? So I don't know. And then there's questions with RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett was one of the best players in that tournament, that World Championship. He was. For Team Canada, he was the best. Karl Anthony Towns played on that team. Wiggins played on that team. And the best player on that team that knocked off Team USA was RJ Barrett. But is RJ Barrett going to do that in the regular season for the New York Knicks when they need him the most? Mitchell Robinson was playing fantastic against the Cavaliers last year until game number 5 when he hurt himself. Then he goes into the Miami series and he just got pulverized by Bam Adebayo. And then you look at Julius Randle. We all know what Julius Randle is. He's a statistic machine if you play fantasy.
Yep.
But in the playoffs, he's a bricklayer. And the guy doesn't get along with anybody if he doesn't get the ball in his hands. Jalen Brunson has to have the season that he had last year. He needs to score between 22 and 24 points a game. He needs to average about 8 to 9 assists a game and do what he does best, get everybody involved. If he does that, the Knicks could absolutely make a run. Are they a championship contending team right now? As far as the roster is built right now? No. Evan Fournier is still on this roster. He's still making almost $20 million a year. I think it's $18 million a year.
Right.
They overpaid for him. The only 2 contracts I hated by Leon Rose was Evan Fournier and Julius Randle. Julius Randle is a statistic machine. So you could say whatever you want. At least he puts up numbers in the regular season and helps this team win. What has Evan Fournier done for them? Nothing.
At least Julius Randle is a well-rounded player. He's just really inconsistent with it, the kind of thing, too. And he's 42% shooting from the field. It's not ideal when he's hogging the ball a ton either. And you look at somebody like the Knicks, when you look at the bench, too, they have a lot of good wing players off the bench, too. The one thing I worry about with the Knicks is their bigger forwards. Could they be able to get more with that, especially if Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, too, with the rebounding? And that's why I was really disappointed when they traded Toppin away, too, because he was really good with that second unit as a strategic basketball player. Yes, he missed a lot of threes. Yes, he had some turnover issues, but he was good defensively for his size. He was a good passer, and the guys played better around him too. Can they find that other guy to make that kind of thing work? Because they have a lot of it with the 2s. They have a lot of it with the 3s. I don't know if they have it with the 4s. That is what worries me the most with the Knicks this season. I think they'll be about the same, a 5 or 6 seed in the East, but not much upside besides that unless they make a big move.
They're probably going to make a big move at the trade deadline. I could see the Knicks doing it. I don't know who they're going to bring in. Maybe they bring in 2 guys. But that doesn't mean they're going to be a championship team. And right now, when you look at this roster, this roster isn't a championship team. I would say the Celtics are built to win a championship. Oh, yeah. The question is, are they going to be able to put all the pieces together? I don't know what the Celtics are going to do. And we've seen the Celtics over the last couple of years in the playoffs. They have absolutely laid a lousy goose egg, especially against Miami. For some reason, they've had problems beating Miami in the playoffs. Maybe because it's Spoelstra, he's the best coach in the NBA, or maybe it's just they're a gritty team and they got guys like Jimmy Butler that all of a sudden explode in the playoffs and put up numbers that you wouldn't expect. So, and Jimmy Butler's a great player. I'm not saying that he's not a great player, but Jimmy Butler is a different player in the playoffs. Last year, he was the best player, not in every single series, but throughout the finals and the championship, he was the best player on the court.
Right. The Celtics, no question, I think are the most complete all-around team in the Eastern Conference. But we've seen in the playoffs when one of Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown struggles, sometimes they have struggles offensively. There were a lot of games they scored less than 100 points in the playoffs, even in games they won. And can they expect it again with a coach that's still kind of questionable too? And we'll see with all these new pieces coming in with the trades that they made too. I know you love the Drew Holiday move, and that'll definitely help the perimeter defense get even better. But
I think Drew Holiday is so underrated. He is so underrated because he's a two-dimensional player. He can play the defense and he can shoot. He could do everything, and he gets everybody involved. And Giannis came out, and I know Josh told me this the other day. Giannis came out after they won the championship, and Giannis said, how did you win this championship? And Giannis said, if we didn't have Drew Holiday, we didn't have a chance to win this
he was the best player in the finals.
Yeah, so I still think Giannis was the best player throughout the playoffs, and he's going to blow up a guy like Drew Holiday because of who he is and the type of player he is. And he's a good person. He's a good, kind soul. Him and his wife, I mean, they won an ESPY last year for all the kindness that they have done over the years, investing and donating so much money. And I think his wife is a former soccer player.
Yeah, she's a soccer player. I think she was on the USA roster this year, but missed the cut for the World Cup.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, to me, a guy like Drew Holiday is a guy that you have to and you should respect. So I love the story behind everything that he has done, him and his wife, and I love what the Celtics have done in the offseason. To trade away Brogdon and bring in Drew Holiday and get Drew Holiday from Portland. I understand why Portland did it. They were trying to get rid of the contract, but to give up a player of that magnitude who could have helped Scoot actually learn the game. He's a good teacher and he's a successful point guard in his league. I think Scoot would have learned the game a lot better if he had somebody like that on that roster. Brogdon is a guy, he's a good player, but Brogdon can't stay healthy. He never stays healthy.
He's also not a true point guard either. He's more of a wing that has some good ball handling skills too. And the Celtics still pulling that off for probably their two most injury-prone players on the team, Malcolm Brogdon. And I know, Jeff, you like him, but Robert Williams has never stayed healthy either. And
he's no longer a Celtic, so I doubt he gives a crap about him.
Yeah, but even so, like, that they didn't have to trade much in order to get a player that has been good in the playoffs too, was the best defensive point guard in the league in the year the Bucks won the championship, still one of the best ones today. And you get somebody to help out with Derek White, who's already a good perimeter defender. Jaylen Brown's a great perimeter defender too. That's going to be a great identity for the Celtics team if they can get the same level of depth they had last year.
There's a lot of questions right now with the Nets. And what type of roster do they have this year? They played very well. When they traded Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were gone, and they had to play team basketball, Mikal Bridges really turned into the superstar that everybody thought he could be after getting traded from Phoenix to the Brooklyn Nets for Kevin Durant. And what he did in the World Championships with Team USA, he was the best player on Team USA. Not even close. He was the best player on Team USA. You look at this roster, what stands out to you? I mean, everybody keeps talking about this kid, Cameron Johnson.
Good three-point shooter, but not much else.
But he's another guy that came in that Phoenix trade. Mm-hmm. And he didn't, but this guy was a top draft pick for Phoenix years and years ago.
Yeah, I think he was 10th overall.
And he never developed. Mm-hmm. Never developed. Now, he's a good shooter. I understand why people like him. He played for North Carolina. I do remember that.
He was the best mid-range shooter in the country in North Carolina.
Yes, but he hasn't been that in the NBA. And you bring in ex-Knicks like Dennis Smith Jr. Are you going to trust Dennis Smith Jr. on this roster? Ben Simmons, are you going to trust him to stay healthy this year and keep his mouth shut? I mean, there are guys on this roster. There's a lot of question. I love Spencer Dinwiddie. I really like Spencer Dinwiddie. They should have never traded him. They should have never let him go. And I will say that. And they brought him back. And I thought Spencer Dinwiddie was going to be traded in the offseason. But they decided to keep him. He's still a good player. Now, he's a veteran player, he's 30 years old, but he still has a lot of basketball left inside of him. And there's a lot of questions with this roster. They made the playoffs last year. The Nets they squeaked into the playoffs.
They weren't even a play-in team either. They were like a 6th seed.
They were a 6th seed. They made the playoffs when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and there were like 22 games left of the season. Right. They won a lot of games without Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. That says a lot about the coaching. That says a lot about this team and the chemistry of this team when those two idiots left.
Right, and they held off the Miami Heat. Granted, Miami made the finals, so it didn't really hurt them, but they held off the Miami Heat, a good team. They held off a very hot in the second half Atlanta Hawks team, too. So it's not like they held off a bunch of scrubs.
I think when you look at this team and this roster, there's a lot of questions. And could they do it in an 82-game season?
They don't have a superstar. Now, Mikal Bridges could be a superstar. He could turn into a superstar this year. He is a fantastic talent. He really is. He's undersized at his position. I will say that. Yeah. He's 6'6", and he's 209 pounds, but he's got a tremendous ability. He's a good rebounder. He does everything right, and he doesn't cry on the court. He just goes out there and plays the game. But are you going to trust that Mikal Bridges is a guy that you want to build your team around?
And again, the Nets right now, they have one well-rounded player in Mikal Bridges. They have a lot of specialists besides that. Spencer Dinwiddie's a good point guard, pure point guard, but still leaves a lot to be desired, also being kind of an undersized player too. Like you were saying, Cam Johnson is just really a shooter and not really much else, not much of a defender. Nick Claxton, we were talking about it during your fantasy draft on Monday, is one of the best rebounder shot block guys, but like Mitchell Robinson really doesn't provide much offensively for him and is a horrible free throw shooter. I think he's better than Robinson, but not by much too. And then these rookies that they've drafted in recent years with these draft picks too. How fast will they be able to get to develop under this new coaching staff too? I like Jock Vaughn. I think he's done a good job with this team so far, considering the circumstances, but still, it's still not.
I don't like Jock Vaughn, but I remember in Orlando, and he wasn't successful there. Okay. But he got another chance over here with the Brooklyn Nets, and what he did last year in the last 22 games of the season, when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were no more part of this roster, I was impressed on his coaching skill with these young players. But can he do it in a full season? 82 games. He had a young squad over there in Orlando. It didn't work. He couldn't build that team. They had how many first-round draft picks on that roster when he took over that roster? Yep. It didn't work. So could Jock Vaughn, in his second job as a head coach, could it work now? I don't know. There's a lot of questions over there. So I just think that if you're a Net fan, don't expect this team to make the playoffs this year, because there are a lot of good teams in the Eastern Conference that could squeak in. The Brooklyn Nets. Okay, so I'm looking at the rosters. Atlanta should make the playoffs this year. Yep. They should. They're a good roster. If they stay healthy, they're going to make the playoffs. Boston is definitely making the playoffs. Cleveland is definitely making the playoffs if there's no injuries. I think Detroit makes the playoffs this year.
I think they're I think they could be a play-in team, but yeah, I could see that.
I could see Detroit as long as they keep their youngsters healthy. Right. I think Ivy is going to be explosive this year. Mm-hmm. I really do. He played very well in the second half, and when he took over, when he was the number one point guard, he was the number one option on this roster. He played fantastic.
And Monty Williams coaching them now, so.
Yep. Indiana is going to be really good this year. I like their roster. They're young. They added Obi Toppin. Halliburton is one of the best point guards in the league. I think they're going to be fun to watch. High-flying, very good offensively, and hopefully better defensively than they were last year. Milwaukee, obviously. Miami, obviously. The Knicks should make the playoffs, and the 76ers. So only 8 teams. There are playing teams. I think 10 teams make it.
10 teams make it, 7 through 10.
So let's do it. Atlanta's making the playoffs. Boston's making the playoffs. Cleveland's making the playoffs. Detroit, I think, is going to make the playoffs. Indiana's going to make the playoffs. Miami, Milwaukee, the Knicks, Philadelphia. That's 10. That's 10 teams. Now, we could be wrong. Now, Charlotte could surprise a lot of people. LaMelo Ball becomes a superstar. Michael Jordan's no longer there. He's not the team owner. Maybe this is a different squad this year.
If Brandon Miller's on the playing all year too, if he doesn't have those off-court issues too, he's going to be a really good player too.
The Chicago Bulls. I just said I love Donovan. I think Billy Donovan's he's Long Island native, New York native. I would love to see Chicago make the playoffs. They have DeRozan still there. They still have weapons there. And I think they had a good squad last year. It didn't make any sense how it didn't click in a Donovan type of offense. But again, that could be different this year. So there could be a lot of questions. And if the 76ers part ways with James Harden and Embiid leaves, this roster stinks. They're not going anywhere.
It might be like a Dallas Mavericks situation last year where the 76ers fall from like 6 to out of the playoffs.
So the Eastern Conference is so wide open. The Western Conference, we all know who's going to make. We know Denver's making the playoffs. Phoenix, as long as they, these players like Devin Booker and Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant actually work well together, because I don't know if they have a point guard that can run that offense.
And if they stay healthy.
And they have to stay healthy, they're making the playoffs. I still think Golden State's going to make the playoffs. Yes. I don't like their roster, but I think they're going to make the playoffs because they have Steph Curry. Los Angeles is definitely making the playoffs this year with the roster that they have. They brought Wood in. They have weapons. LeBron has to stay healthy. Anthony Davis has got to play better, but this is a good run. And Reeves is still there. They're going to win. a significant amount of games this year. Dallas, there's a lot of questions here. I don't know. Houston, they brought in a coach that, as long as he keeps his what in his pants, they have a good young roster. They're good. They're talented. Maybe Houston makes the playoffs this year. I would predict they don't. They might miss it. They might have the play-in game, but I don't think.
Right. I would say 9 or 10 seed at most.
The Clippers are making the playoffs. Memphis is definitely making the playoffs, including when they add John Morant to this roster. Minnesota should make the playoffs with the roster they have. The Pelicans, with a full season of Zion Williamson, should make the playoffs.
You would hope.
Oklahoma's making the playoffs, and Sacramento could make the playoffs. So San Antonio's not making the playoffs. Utah, I'll be very surprised if Utah makes it. They started the season so strong, and then they fell off in the second half.
Yeah, they're like 11-2, and then they finished the first half of the season like 28 and 20 and like 48.
I could see them trading Markkanen at the trade deadline.
Oh, sure.
Because they could get a lot for him if Markkanen starts the season strong. He was high in fantasy. If he's averaging 20 to 22 points and a team needs a big man that could shoot and do the things that he does well, Markkanen could be on his way out from Utah if they're not a playoff contending team.
Let's go with Cleveland, so maybe they try to get him back. So.
Yes, and we all know that a guy that absolutely can't stand the Knicks, who's the president of vice president operations over there, would probably move him for 2 first-round draft picks.
Oh yeah, no, they'll ask for Julius Randle back in the trade.
I don't think that he's going to the Knicks. I'm just saying.
No, I don't either. That's the joke.
I don't see the Knicks trading with them ever again after the whole Donovan Mitchell collapse. I mean, the Knicks were not going to give up what they were asking for, and obviously they were asking for it because they thought that the Knicks were stupid enough to do it. So it's open. The NBA season is going to be open. I still think the best team in the NBA is Denver.
Oh yeah,
I think they're the best team. Very well coached. They have the best player in the world in Jokic. And to me, if Murray plays like he did in the second half, he got his legs under him. If he plays a full season, Jamal Murray, they're going to be very hard to beat. Even the Celtics, if they match up against them, I don't know if anybody can match up to them going into this season. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 68, 69 games this year.
Mm-hmm. And one thing we did see in the NBA last year that you didn't really see in years past too is these younger teams getting better quickly too. Like the Sacramento Kings were the number 3 seed in the West last year. Memphis was number 2. You had the Cavaliers be number 4 last year.
4, and the Knicks were 5.
Right. And those young teams that weren't expected to be that good right away made their mark. And we saw that kind of thing in baseball this year where a lot of the veteran teams fell off and the young teams, obviously with the Diamondbacks and the Rangers in the World Series now, made their mark. And you saw that in the NBA too with these regular season teams making their splashes. So I think you're going to get that kind of thing. I think the top is kind of top heavy with the Nuggets, the Celtics, the Bucks, and probably everybody else, maybe Miami. But the 5 through like 20 could go in many different directions.
Were the Knicks 6 or
they were 5?
They were 5,
they
right?
Played against Cleveland in the first round,
right,
and then lost to Miami, who was the 8th seed.
That's right.
So
that's right.
They ended up. They normally would have played the 1 seed, which would have been Milwaukee, but they played the 8th.
With the NBA, you can't predict what's going to happen, but you know who's going to sneak into the playoffs, especially in the Western Conference.
Right.
There's not many questions with the Western Conference. I think Portland will have a good young player. Scoot will definitely be up for a rookie of the year consideration. Yeah. I absolutely believe that. And I think Sacramento is going to be a lot better this year than they were last year. I think they're fun to watch. Sabonis is sensational. De'Aaron Fox is one of the best point guards in the league. And he wasn't healthy in the playoffs in that playoff run. If he was healthy, maybe they win that series.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
who knows?
I think there's a lot of questions with the Western Conference this year. And maybe Golden State don't make the playoffs. Everybody thinks that Golden State, and including me, because Steph Curry's on the roster, they have a chance to still win a championship. I think they're done. I think championship is no longer out of their mouths. They just want to make a run, and maybe if they squeak, maybe they make a trade at the trade deadline and they get an Embiid.
They need size badly, so they have to try something.
If they could get Embiid or Karl Anthony Towns with this roster, maybe. But who are you going to trade for? Right. I mean, you don't have anything. Nobody wants Klay Thompson's contract. He's not healthy. He's never healthy. Steph Curry for Karl Anthony Towns. Are you going to trade Steph Curry? Your franchise player? Curry, no. They're not going to do that. So who are they going to trade? Draymond Green?
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants him.
Go trade $125 or whatever $1 million guy that all he does is run his mouth and get hurt. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Nobody's taking him. I mean, there's nobody on this roster. They traded Wiseman for nothing. Made no sense. Jordan Poole, they just shoot away. Mm-hmm. I mean, Andrew Wiggins, maybe, but Andrew Wiggins, you're not getting Embiid for just Andrew Wiggins.
And DiVincenzo was really good for them too last year, and they lost him.
He goes to the Knicks. So, and that's a problem with the Golden State Warriors. And now that their GM is no longer there, he stepped down. Where do they go with this roster? Does Steve Kerr decide to part ways with the organization at the end of this year if they don't make the playoffs? Now, he came out and said in the offseason, he was the assistant coach on Team USA. He came out and said that he wants to be there for the next couple of years. He wants to be a part of the rebuilding and win more championships there. I just don't know if it's going to happen. And Steph Curry is only getting older, and his ankles are getting older, and his knees are getting older. And you're going to trust these old players, especially with Klay Thompson, who you got an extension, tears his Achilles, tears his ACL, and he's never going to be the same player. So,
and Chris Paul is injury prone too.
I like Chris Paul. I like the move of Chris Paul. I think that him coming off the bench as a point guard is sensational. And Chris Paul might move himself into that starting lineup with Steph Curry. It'll be a small lineup, but
really small.
But again, you put Chris Paul with Steph Curry. I mean, you have a dynamic duo over there. And
line up for the end of the game. It'll be potent.
And Chris Paul, he could still pass the ball very, very well. For his size, he's a pretty good rebounder, and he could still shoot. He could still hit big shots, and he's a good free throw shooter. So I still think adding Chris Paul was a nice piece, but is it a piece to get him over the hump? I don't think that. And if you're a Golden State fan, and I know there's a lot of Golden State fans that argue with me all over social media and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. The fact is, Steph Curry is not getting any younger. He's 33 years old. Okay. He's not. I watched his documentary. Great for him. He's a sensational player. We all know what he is. We all know what he's capable of doing. He's the greatest three-point shooter we've ever seen in the NBA. No question.
Did you just watch his documentary just to nitpick on something?
No, I was intrigued. I was actually a Steph Curry fan when he played for Davidson.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned
I was. I liked him. But when he came into the NBA and the Knicks missed out on him, that wasn't why he didn't like him. It was when, after his ankles and he had all those surgeries, it was when he came and he started playing his game and became a superstar in his league. He became some cocky kid dancing around, biting his mouthpiece, throwing his mouthpiece around, and thinking that he's the greatest point guard to ever play the game, which he's not. And for him to think that is ridiculous. Magic Johnson came out in the offseason and says you have to play longer and you have to be a dominant force at the point guard position before you say that you're better than me or better than half the guys that have played in this league.
Right. And also, if you want to take shots at the Knicks for everything, like, at least you're not the Minnesota Timberwolves. They passed on Steph Curry with 2 different first round picks.
Steph Curry's dominance was what, 7 years? I mean, he was dominant for 7 years.
Yeah, I would say like the peak form was dominant for about that. He was a good player for probably another 4 or 5, but the first couple
How
of years
long has he been in the league?
Since 2008. So, like, I would say the first 3 years of his career, he was just mad. Then he was good, and then now he's
the first 3 or 4 years he was injured. He wasn't healthy. So it took him his 5th year. So I would say 7 years of his dominant game. And yes, he's the greatest 3-point shooter in those times. And people, he brought so many fans to the game, and especially he sells the most jerseys and all that other stuff. Great for him. But to say that he's the greatest point guard to ever play the game is ridiculous. And I loved Magic Johnson when he came out and said, and Magic Johnson sticks up for everybody, because Magic Johnson came out and said Kobe Bryant is the greatest Laker of all time. When he said that, I said, what do you want, drugs? I mean, did you forget about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Did you forget about yourself? Did you forget about, I don't know, I would say he was better than James Worthy, but was he better than Shaquille O'Neal when Shaquille O'Neal was there at the dominant time that he was dominant? I don't know. So to say that he's the greatest Laker, I mean, Jerry West was on that team. Jerry West was a great Laker. There were so many great Lakers. To say Kobe Bryant was the greatest Laker, I think that's crazy. But again, it's Magic Johnson. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero. Played in 2014 and 2022 with the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, and the Mets here on the Sports Loudmouth.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouth.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, this is the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Sports Loudmouth, which airs every single Wednesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Tune in to Game On, which airs every single Friday at 6 p.m. We have The Wise Guy, which airs every single Mondays and Wednesdays, wherever they want to go on live.
He's consistent with Fridays, besides not.
Now
not
he's
much.
on Fridays. I mean, the guy's all over the place. But we have that. We have The Herd, the Buffalo Bills show. And we have a betting show every single Saturday morning. So tune in every single week. But we have our first guest, our only guest tonight, and we're happy to have him on. He's a free agent infielder, and his name is Deven Marrero. I got it right this time, Deven.
There we go.
Played for 2014, 2022 with the Red Sox, Diamondbacks, Marlins, and Mets. Happy to have you, bud. How are you and your family doing with COVID and everything that's gone on over the last couple of years?
We're good, man. We're good. You know, COVID's kind of not a thing in Miami, or I'm here in Atlanta now with my girlfriend living here. So COVID really doesn't exist anymore. It never did in Miami. You know, everything was normal back then, but everyone's good. Everyone's working. And, you know, I'm here enjoying retirement. So it's been a fun year for sure.
Well, are you for Team Rogers or Team Kelsey with the whole COVID shot?
Man, Kelsey's a good friend of Hosmer, so I'm staying on Kelsey's side for sure. For sure. That whole thing's a fiasco. I try to stay out of all that COVID stuff.
Yeah,
so.
well, I mean, it's so funny because when the Kansas City Chiefs were playing the Jets, Aaron Rodgers was on the sideline, and you see Kelsey and him laughing and giggling. But when Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, he was taking shots at Kelsey, and then Kelsey was on his own podcast. He was taking shots at Aaron Rodgers, and then they're hanging out, laughing and giggling about it. So I don't know, but
that's the media for you, man. It's just creating something, you know. So those guys are in their media worlds now, and you know there's that brotherhood in sports. So those guys are just probably texting each other on the side, hey man, let's stir some shit up this week, you know. So
I want to ask before we get into some baseball stuff, what is that sculpture in the background? That is very cool.
That's from one of my guys who's a great artist, Timmy Sneaks in Boston. He made it's like a Super Trooper, and it's like a custom painted Super Trooper. It's super sick. I'm a big art collector, you know. Art Basel's big in Miami, so I love art. My girlfriend loves art, so we like to collect a couple things, and especially
you mention your girlfriend. Are we talking about marriage soon, my friend? I don't know.
Hey, maybe.
Look at you, man. I'm happy for you.
That's definitely the plan. You know, I found me the right one, an amazing woman. So, you know, we have a lot of fun together. We have a lot of similarities, and you know, I was single for a long time, but now it's time to settle down and start a family. And
you did the cheater.
Couldn't pick a better person.
We call it the cheater. You did the cheater. Your career is over as far as you're concerned. And you know, I'm going to move on. I want kids. I want a big, beautiful house. I want to buy all the artwork to put all over my walls and you know, and build a nice little, you know, den for the kids. So there you go. And by the way, those were the Marlins colors, right? They look like Marlins colors. I mean,
no, it's like a little bit of everything, little Vice colors. You know, I'm a big neon guy, so you know the Vice colors on that thing is pretty. Makes it pop out in my style, you know. Like you see the Miami Beach books and stuff. So
I do have the Miami Vice jerseys. I do like them.
I mean, how can you not? You know?
Yeah,
these colors are sick, dude. Super sick.
I grew up a Miami Vice fan. I mean, I love the TV show. So and I always tried when I was a kid. I wanted to wear the glasses. I want to, you know, with the nice cars in Miami. And I go to Miami. You know, it's beautiful, but I'm not a big fan of it. I'm really not a big fan of Miami. And the reason why is because everybody thinks you go there and everything is just fast paced and everything's slow. Everything's slow over there.
Everything just starts later, man. It's what's slow is California. That's like you're on
That's
your
slow too. Let me tell
that's
you.
slow. So like I've been in California a lot. So when I get to Miami, it's definitely not slow. It's you have
It's not fast like New York.
the beach days is slow, and then everyone goes to dinner at 10:30. If you go to dinner at 8, like that's like too early. There's gonna be no one there. Then it's like slow. But from 10:30 till 5 o'clock, Miami is fast.
Are you talking about at night or in the morning?
Yeah, no, I mean,
I've been the night. I DJ'd and I've had the opportunity to check out the nighttime and everything like that.
So
Yes,
you get it.
but it just but when you go into the places you want to get a drink or something, like everything's so slow. I'm like, what the hell? Could you just give me my damn food already? So that's the only, and everything's
That's how they make you spend more money, man. The longer you sit there, the more you're gonna get a drink, 2 drinks, 3 drinks.
I'm going to tell you this. The one thing I like the mimosas over there, but when you get up in the morning and you go outside and you get out of your hotel and you go over there and you try to find a place to get one of those things, it takes forever for them to give it to you. By the time they bring you your mimosa, I'm getting up. I'm like, just give me my mimosa. I'm getting it to go. You know what I mean? It was terrible. I mean, but I understand. I was there for the Super Bowl. I was there in Miami, went to a bunch of events. I loved it. I had a good time. But we're not here to talk about, Miami. We're here to talk about you, the Diamondbacks. I know you played for the Diamondbacks. Yeah. A lot of people were shocked, especially the Phillies going up 3-2 in that series. Nobody thought that the young Diamondbacks were going to come back and win that series. Philadelphia had their best roster. I think they were moving on all cylinders. You had Bryce Harper hitting home runs and pointing out to the outfield. You have Schwarber. The whole team was hitting home runs all over the field. And then all of a sudden, in the last 2 games, the Diamondbacks absolutely shut them down. What were your thoughts to the Diamondbacks in that series?
Man, to me, like I've been saying on Instagram lately with all my videos and stuff, so I've been doing like clips about the whole playoffs. For me, the D-backs are a complete team. Like they have the pitching, they have the bullpen, they have guys that just grind out at bats. So like they're gonna play a complete game more often than the Phillies are gonna go off and hit 100 homers. Like a home run hitting teams. What people don't understand, they're streaky. Like the Yankees, like when the Yankees are hot, when Judge is hitting the homers, Stanton's hitting the homers, they're like the best team on the planet, but like the Phillies, they were just hot for those games, first 2 games at home. And then they found out, hey, we're just going to pitcher on Schwarber, pitcher on Harper. And then we're going to have Nick Castellanos beat us. Baum beat us, who was struggling a little bit in the beginning. He went off the last game, obviously, but yeah, man, they look good when they're hot, but when they're not, they don't have an alternative game plan to beat you. Their only game plan is Wheeler and Nola to shove for 8 innings. And if that doesn't go to plan, and if they don't hit, like they have nothing else, whereas like the D-backs, as you saw, a different guy beat them in 4 games. It wasn't just one guy the whole series that dominated. Like yesterday, Carroll was on base 3 times with the sac fly. So, I mean, he finally showed up in the last game, but they have a complete team, man. And this World Series is going to be good because it's two teams that are hot and they're playing great, and they're playing great on both sides, So we'll see. It's going to be this one's going to go 7, I think, because it's going to be, it's going to be, because the Rangers are kind of similar to the Phillies, but they have, I believe, like a deeper lineup, in my opinion, so it's just they can beat you in more ways than the Phillies can, technically. Because the Phillies pretty much just had that series was Harper and Schwarber hitting homers, and then Nick got hot in the division series before that.
Right.
But yeah, man, and that was it. Like there's gonna be, like I said to my buddies earlier today, I was like, there's gonna be a game in here where it's gonna be 12-2 Rangers because they just went off and the ball was looking like a freaking beach ball to them, and they were hitting homers like crazy. So that's going to happen in this series, but it's just going to be good, man, because both teams are pitching good. Their lineup is longer. They have guys that can beat you. So both defenses are great, so it's going to be interesting, man. I'm excited for this series. 2 teams that aren't supposed to be there are going to play in the World Series. Like, I know a lot of fans wanted the Phillies in because that atmosphere is nuts.
Not me as a Mets fan. I'm glad.
Well, just so you know, I had a bet with Shane Green. He was on our show last week, and me and Shane agreed that if the Phillies go to the World Series, that me and him were going to meet, and we were going to go to the series and watch the Phillies try to win a championship. But that never happened. So me and Green are not going to the World Series.
They're the jinxes of the
Phillies will get back. Dombrowski will make sure they fill out that team for next year. That's his deal. Dombrowski knows what he's doing over there. So
I don't know about that.
I mean, dude, that guy's been ever since he got there, man. He's put a team that wins in the playoffs.
Here's the problem, and I think Speedy will agree with me on this. Dombrowski is a good GM, but he has gone to organizations. He's built them up and then completely beat them down.
Yeah, very top heavy.
He'll win a championship or get close to winning a championship, and then all of a sudden he doesn't know how to rebuild, and then he gets pushed out. We've seen this before. He did it in Boston. Yeah. He's done it everywhere he's gone. Now, I'm not saying I'm sure you're probably friends with Dombrowski, so I'm not going to throw him under the bus because I know you're buddies with him. But nevertheless, when I've seen Dombrowski, it's not like he's never won before. The guy has won before, but he's not the type of guy that, hey, you know what? He's going to build this thing up. Once the thing falls down, he usually falls out. So that's the type
but
of
I mean, there's how many teams actually build up their teams from like the farm system? Like that doesn't really exist anymore, you know?
The Cardinals
coming back though.
The Cardinals
there's only like a select few teams. Like the Dodgers, their minor league system's loaded. The Yankees used to be loaded, but they had to trade a lot of guys.
Yes.
The Braves minor league system stacked always. Like whenever I was coming up through the minor leagues, the teams that were always just loaded at every level was the Phillies, Yankees, who else?
The Dodgers.
Insanely loaded. The Cardinals.
Yep.
Like
Houston.
Houston, you know, and then that's it. You know, it's like it's very, and then you'll have like teams that draft well, like the Pirates in a couple of years, I think are going to be super loaded because they've been drafting well, you know. So it's just a matter of like these teams, can they hold out to when their rookies come there and like stay for a little bit and then like really come alive. But a lot of teams they're doing now, they want to win now. So those rookies get there, or they're like prospects, and they're like, "Hey, you're gone. We're trading for Judge or something like that." You know what I mean? Like it's just.
Why don't you come out of retirement? We bring you on. How about that?
Or you can come back to the Mets. We won't mind.
Dude, I would love to go back to the Mets. That was a fun team. And I know I wasn't there for a lot of time, but that crew was fun. And that was a good team. At the end, we just had some injuries there at the end, like with Scherzer and DeGrom. They were pitching, but they were pitching not 100%. But yeah, that was a fun team, dude. That Mets team was
Pete Alonso was a good leader and good for the clubhouse, not like these naysayers that's saying.
Who's that?
Pete Alonso. Everyone's saying, "Oh, he's not good for the clubhouse."
Dude, that guy runs the whole atmosphere there, and it's amazing. There's never, you know, like everyone's accountable, right? Like that clubhouse is filled with guys that have been there, done it, you know, all-stars. You know, they know what they need to do to get ready for a game, you know, so like you only need that when you have a young team of guys that are coming up. They need some like guidance. But Pete's like guy on the bus, gets on the bus and is the MC and is probably one of the best MCs I've ever had on a bus. You know, this guy has different characters that he pulls out. You know, he's a trip, man. In the clubhouse, he's loose, he's funny. But you know, once that game starts, man, that guy goes into game mode, and we're doing everything to win this game. Like that's what like was pretty cool about the big leagues, you know, like when you have like, I was fortunate to be in Boston, a veteran team. When I got to Arizona, it was a veteran team. We had Goldschmidt, Nick Ahmed, we had Pollock, we had Corbin, you know, Robbie Ray. Like these guys are veterans, you know. So I was fortunate to be in veteran teams, and that was the Mets was one of the big time veteran teams I played with, you know. So it was impressive how everyone prepares and had fun. But then when it got to game time, it was, hey, let's turn that switch. So it's pretty cool.
As everybody knows, we are talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero. He's obviously had a pretty good major league career, 2014 to 2022. He's retired now, as he said. Played for the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, and the Mets. And you said you played for the Red Sox. What was it like playing for the Red Sox? What was it like playing at Fenway Park and with that team?
Oof, that was the best. A team that drafted me, and get into the major leagues with them. But I think the best part about the Red Sox was all the guys that I came up with: Mookie, Swihart, Shaw, Benintendi, Jackie, Bogarts, Vasquez. We all got to the big leagues together, and I got traded that year, but they won the World Series together, and that was like pretty
Did you
special.
get a ring? Did you get a ring?
No, because I got traded the last day of spring training.
Ah.
Yeah, so I didn't get that, but I went to the World Series in LA and watched them win it the last 2 games there, and it was so dope. I was like, I have to be there for the guys. I feel like I'm part of this, and I wanted to see them win. And
They should have given you a ring. Come on, stop being cheap. Boston should be sending you a nice, beautiful ring.
Nah, it's all right. But yeah, man, Boston was awesome, and I got to play with some Hall of Famers. I got to play with Big Papi, Pedroia, and David Price, Porcello, all these guys, man, that are. I mean, Devers is going to be a Hall of Famer, I'm sure. Mookie's going to be a Hall of Famer, I'm sure, for sure. Devers, Mookie, Bogarts. Those guys are
all $300 million players. Keep naming them.
Yeah. I mean, they're getting that money for a reason. You know what I mean? Like those guys
you should call them up.
That,
should call them up and ask him, hey, throw me $5 million, man. Not gonna bother
Maybe
you.
Trevor Story will give you part of his contract because you can actually stay healthy.
Yeah, man. I mean, he just had some freak injuries, man. That guy did it in Colorado for a lot of years,
You could have done it in Colorado too. Me and Speedy could have done it in Colorado with the air over there. I mean,
have you guys been there? Have you guys been to that ballpark?
Oh, no. I have. Dude, it's beautiful. It
is unreal, and there's so many hits to find there. Yeah, and it's crazy. Like I don't know if you've talked to any pitchers that have pitched there, but
did we?
They
throw
more fastballs there because the slider doesn't break as much. So it's very hitter friendly in that way. And then, I mean, the park is huge. So the outfielders play back. So you get a lot of cheap hits too. Like a lot of green grass in the gaps. It's a fun place to play, man. It's tight. They'll just never get any pitcher free agents ever there.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Our guest tomorrow, Michael McHenry, was a catcher that played there briefly. He played with the Pirates mostly, but was with the Cardinals and the Rockies too. But
Michael's been on a show. He's fantastic.
I don't think we've had any pitchers that plays for the Rockies that I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, he'll tell you about it. Like it's putting on that 3 and that 2. It's like you get a little nervous because I think he's just gonna spin not so much and just stay right there. So, and when the ball gets in the air, there it's see ya. I've seen Goldschmidt hit a ball there in the upper deck oppo, and it's like that should not happen.
You did the Michael K. See ya.
See ya.
Yes, he loves broadcasting home runs for not the Yankees.
Right, he does that very much so.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about Big Papi, too, when you were there with the Red Sox. That was the last couple years of his career when you first came up. Do you have a good story of Big Papi?
Yeah, man, I have so many good stories of Big Papi. From him taking us out to dinner in New York every night we were there and other places to him making a bet with Mookie Betts in the beginning of the season when he Mookie never starts off hot. So he was like, hey, you're going to be fine. Don't worry. And he made a bet with Mookie that he was going to buy him a nice watch and a chain if he hit a certain amount of home runs and an average. And the last series of the year, we're in Yankee Stadium, and me and Mookie went to the ballpark every day together. And we get there, and we were locker mates, and chain hanging and watch hanging right there in his locker at the end of the year. And that was just like, man, that is pro. And this wasn't no cheap watch that he has. This was a watch.
Rolex, right? It was probably a Rolex.
I'm sure. I don't remember what it was, but it was. I was like, damn, this is pro. This guy was a man of his word, and Mookie pulled it off, and it was sick. So sick.
As everybody knows, we are talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero. He's a guy that played almost, I think it's 8 years in the major leagues. He played for the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, the Mets. And, Deven, you look at the league now, and you mentioned it, the Yankees, the Dodgers, all these big teams, and internationally, everybody keeps talking about this guy Yamamoto, and this is the next big thing. Everybody knows over the last couple of years of a pitcher that's been dominant. He's been the MVP a couple of times, and now he's, you know who I'm talking about, Mr. Ohtani. And now they're saying that this kid is going to be a better pitcher than Ohtani. What are your thoughts? I mean, have you checked him out? Have you ever checked out any of the video of him?
I mean, I watched him at the World Baseball Classic, and that was impressive. I mean, he's not facing chump change in the World Baseball Classic either, you know? And I tell you what, man, that Japan league is tough. That Japan, they have some good players that are over there, and you know, it's a tough league. I say it's the second best league in the world after obviously here. No, my cousin played over there, and he was like, man, that league is no joke. So I mean, I see all the guys that come over there, all the pitchers, like they dominate for a while, you know, and then they have to like obviously change some things, you know, because I mean, 100 flat and straight in the United States will get hit in the big leagues, you know, but he has a nasty splitter. So I mean,
his changeup, they say, is the most dominant pitch he has.
Yeah,
that it's unbelievable how it.
Yeah, it's like that splitter change that is gross. But I mean, dude, those guys come over here, and I mean, you saw, you know, I mean, Ohtani's thing is he pitches and he hits, right, and he does them very, very well. This guy just pitches and pitches very, very, very well.
Very well.
You know what I'm saying? It's like if you see Ohtani pitch, like, man, I want that. That's a number one. This guy would be a number one over Ohtani, 100%. Like not even.
I think so too.
Not even.
Where do you think he goes? Where do you think he goes?
It honestly depends.
Go ahead, say it. I know where
it depends. It depends where Ohtani goes. Honestly, I think if you look at it, it's a West Coast team, in my opinion. I think this Giants have saved up a lot of money over the past couple of years, and they're going to get one or two of those guys. In my opinion, you know, they were in the playoff race for a little bit until the last month, and then they fell apart. You know, so like if they just get a pitcher like that or a player like Ohtani, you know, it's because I think the whole Japanese market too, like off the field and stuff, like Seattle, LA, Anaheim, San Francisco, like the Asian market there is gigantic. You know, but I don't think any of them go to the Mets or the Yankees like everyone thinks.
I'm surprised you say that. I've been reading a lot of stuff.
The Mets have spent a lot a lot of money, man. Like I
know.
And with the new GM that came from the Brewers, like he doesn't break the bank for guys. You know what I mean? So he's gonna make smart free agent signings. I'll tell you that, because that guy knows what he's doing. But he's not going to be like, hey, we need Ohtani's going to save us, or this guy's going to save us. That's a lot of money you're going to have to pay those guys. Like,
but how much is Yamamoto going to get? I mean, because he's getting international money. I think he's only going to make a certain amount of money. You're not going to overpay him.
Yeah, I think Senga got 5 years, 75.
So I would think that he gets like a 4 to 5 year deal worth about closer to 90 million. I think that's what he's going to get.
I think he's going to get like a short amount of years with a lot of money so that he could turn around and then get like the
flip it.
Because international, you don't have to wait like the 6 years of like league minimum and then arbitration. You know, you just do your contract. Then after that, it's like, all right, now we go. So I think because he's still young, I believe he's still like in like
24.
Yeah, he's still 24. So
that's why
you give him a 3-year deal. He's 27. And then
he's going to get a boatload of money if he's as good as he says he is.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, a 3-year deal for him, I think would be good. Like 3 years, like you said, 50 something, 60 maybe. You know,
but Deven, if you look at you said the Yankees and the Mets, you don't think they have a chance to get him. The Yankees have been there quite a few times. Omar Minaya is working for the Yankees. Cashman was there watching him play over the summer. And then obviously Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie, flew over there himself in his jet to go and watch him a couple of games over the summer. So
that was during the season.
Yes. I think it's very interesting if and I know there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested in him. I heard
No.
I heard the Red Sox, I heard the Yankees, I heard the Mets, I heard the Dodgers are interested in him. I heard the Giants.
But it's your typical teams, right? That have money. It's not like just a bit of those 5-6
Well,
teams.
he's not
that,
going to Kansas City. I mean, why would he go there?
Or Tampa.
Well, Tampa will. I think Tampa would pay him because it's not going to be a lot of money. It's $16 million. I think Tampa could afford it, right?
He's going to play.
I mean, $5 million is a lot of money for Tampa. Let's be honest.
Sure.
He'll be more than their combined payroll for the last 10 years if he goes to Tampa.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, man, I think it's gonna be like because for those guys, it's all about comfort, like the whole, they want to win later, but it's like, hey, I want to find, like, this is like a new place for him. He wants to be around an Asian community, have some comfort, that's why Ohtani loved Anaheim, and like, he might stay there. You never know.
Good luck with that ownership.
Oh man. But they pay him, he will. Let me tell you that. Ownership's irrelevant.
But you
all those zeros.
You want to be close to an Asian community? I mean, New York, there's so many Asian communities. Yeah. I mean, Queens. I mean, if you go to the Mets, there's a ton of. Queens is covered with Asian. You know what I mean? And then if you're you go to the Yankees, there's Manhattan. There's so many. I mean, it's so.
Especially sponsorship. Sponsorship wise, it's better.
Yes,
obviously to be.
He'll make a load of money in New York. He'll make a load of money in New York, and he knows that.
But I don't know, man. Like has there ever been an Asian player that signed straight from Asia to the Yankees or the Mets?
Yes, actually, it was Speedy.
Yep,
Tanaka got
recently.
Masahiro Tanaka.
Tanaka. Who else?
Well, they had a lot of bad ones. They had a lot of bad ones too.
Arabu,
yeah.
Arabu was the worst. Oh my God. Oh, I remember him. Everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's the next big thing." He
Carl
came
says
here.
Matsui. So
Matsui. Well, that was Jason Giambi that drew him here. I mean, Jason Giambi played in the World Baseball Classics, and he actually drew him. Godzilla and Matsui loved it here in New York. He absolutely loved it. He still works with the Yankees. He's playing in golf tournaments. Who knows? Maybe Matsui pleads with him and says, "Come over here, Yamamoto. I will show you around here."
Maybe Senga will do the same thing for the Mets too. Go for another Japanese pitcher.
or Ichiro might snag him to Seattle.
That's true too.
Yeah,
something to think about.
The only difference
Ichiro, I think, has more say than all those guys combined.
I think so too. I think if Ichiro reaches out to him, I think it's definitely a lot of clout over there. If Ichiro reaches out to him and says, "Listen, come over here. They have a good roster. They have a good pitching staff, and they can win." I mean, they do. I was very surprised. I was very surprised.
Do they? I haven't really looked at Seattle's payroll. Do they have a lot of room there? Like, have they been spending? I know they signed Ray and Rodriguez and stuff like that, but is there?
It's only Julio and Robbie Ray. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. So they have a lot of money, and they know. See, like, people don't understand too with these guys like Ohtani. Yeah, like, you're getting the player that he is, but the money that these teams make just off those guys being in the lineup, like in the stadium, outside the stadium, like, it's astronomical. Like, the biggest thing with Bryce Harper was, you're getting one of the best players in the world, but people are going to come watch this guy play every day, and they're going to buy his jersey, buy his hats. Social media now, like, there's a big social media following with these guys, and that's like huge now, so.
I hate it. I absolutely hate the social media thing. By the way, we were talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero. He played from 2014 to 2022. He played for the Red Sox. He played for the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, the Mets. He's retired, ladies and gentlemen. And women, ladies, he is not single anymore. He's got a girlfriend. He's very happy, and it might be his future wife. So lay back, stay back from him. He's happy, and he's an art man. So, but again, you were talking about Ohtani. I could see Ohtani going to Seattle. It makes a lot of sense. With that roster, that young roster, it's over there on the West Coast. He's still close to Japan, and who knows if they draw Ohtani there. Yamamoto could go over there too. No. So you're right. It makes a lot of sense. And they have a good young. I was so shocked because I thought they were going to completely miss out, and they played very well in the second half and did what they did. They just fell short.
And I had the other side. They were my World Series American League pick at the start.
But you always say you thought Tampa was going to win the World Series.
I think everyone got the whole bracket thing wrong this year.
I didn't.
I certainly did.
I didn't. By the way, Speedy, tell him.
Yeah, his World Series pick is the Texas Rangers.
I had Texas Rangers winning the World Series, and I also had Philadelphia playing them. And I predicted all the big teams were going to be knocked out. The Orioles were going to get knocked out. Yeah, I predicted it. And Speedy, and I wish I bet on it because I had Texas winning their first.
You'd have made a lot of money.
I would have.
Made a lot of money.
I'm an idiot, man. I'm an idiot. I should have just bet. If I had your kind of money, my friend, I'd be rich. Okay, you should have came to me. I'll give you my picks. I don't bet on my own picks because I'll lose. But anybody,
that's how it works, right? You know what I mean? Like when you, your picks always win when you don't actually put money down. You know what I mean?
No. But my friends come to me and they ask me, "Who do you got? Who do you got?" And I say, "Okay, as long as you don't, I don't ask you for any of the money you're going to win." So, and then I tell them, they ask me what games, I give them my games, and they win. There's most of the time, I would say about 60% of the time when they come to me, I'm right. 60%. No. So that's over 50%. What is Vegas? What is it? 57%, 58%? What is it?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something.
I don't remember. It fluctuates. It fluctuates anywhere from 57 to 62.
So you're giving your boys a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By the way, one of our fans, Carl, asked if Errol attempted a Japanese accent. What are you thinking? You think you sounded like that?
Could you imagine me speak Japanese? I mean, first of all, I don't understand any of the symbols. And it could have, I mean, I could not do it. I could not do it. If you asked me to say a couple of words, so Otani, I'd be like, how do you say hello and goodbye? That's about it.
Goodbye when he doesn't go to the Yankees. Yeah. He'll go to the Red Sox.
He didn't go to the Yankees when he had a chance to go to the Yankees. So I don't think he's going them now. Yeah. But that Soto thing, that Soto story is very interesting. I do believe that if Soto does become available, I could see the Yankees absolutely gunning for him. It makes a lot of sense. It does.
Yeah. Especially in that park.
Yes. Lefty. Yeah. They need left-handed power. He's a good playoff player. That's something that the Yankees have been.
He doesn't have a beard already, so it's fine. You know,
that's true. Even though the Yankee fans like to attack him when he was playing, and I was there. I was at the game, and there was a story that came out at that particular game that right behind him, a bunch of Yankee fans were saying derogatory things to him, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, this guy could be a Yankee, and you're cursing at him and saying all this crazy stuff at him.
I don't know how true this is, but I don't know if you heard this, Devin. Like Yankee fans were blaming Bryce Harper's facial hair for the reason he didn't go to the Yankees.
Oh gosh, I mean, you never know, dude. There's some little things that guys just don't like. I am not shaving. Like I haven't shaved my face since Boston, I think.
Wow.
Like in the minor leagues. Like
you were going to the Yankees then.
Did you embrace the big beard when you were in Boston when you came up? Because the 2013 team that won the World Series was like,
that was so. It was funny because when that team went to the World Series, there was a huge no shave, you have to shave in the minor leagues in Boston. And then when they went to the World Series, had that run the next year, it was like, hey, you guys can grow a beard from AAA on. So it was, and I was already there in AAA in 14. So I was like, oh, this is perfect timing. So yeah. And then I had the playoff beard when was it? In 17. I had the playoff beard in
16, I think.
16. I had the playoff beard in 16 and 17.
Well, you don't have any gray hair, so it does look.
I'm still young, dude. I'm still in my prime.
Oh, I trust me. You would be a baby to me. I'm getting up there in age now.
Everyone younger than him is a baby.
They're baby. And by the way, I've had my beard since I started dating my girlfriend because she told me she doesn't like me without any facial hair. And I say, you look too young. So I've had a beard for over 6 years. So there you go.
Write it out, dude.
Yeah.
What she wants, she gets, you know?
It's got to be clean, man. It's got to be clean.
Always. You can't have the messy beard. That's just not it.
You got to be
sloppy.
Clean. You got to have tied. Okay.
Maybe you could tell that to the Phillies now that they're eliminated. Shave all those big beards that they got there.
I could see you dye your beard blonde. That would be cool. What do you think? What do you think, Speedy? No
shot.
No. Would your girl like that?
I wouldn't be.
Would your girl like that?
No, she would. No, she'd be like, absolutely not. And I'd be like, you're absolutely right.
You're not coming in a house. You're not sleeping in the same bed now.
No, that won't play. That's just not my thing. Not my thing at all. I don't. There's a lot of pride in this, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to take care of it.
take care of it. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. But like
tomorrow-
dyeing it ruins your hair, you know?
Yeah, well, you know what it is I go to the barber every single week. Every Friday, like clockwork, I'm at the barber. Everybody says, how do you go to the barber 4 times a month? I'm just like, I got to be clean cut. I'm in the entertainment field. You know, I go to events. I mean, people are looking at you. If I look like Speedy, I'm just kidding, Speedy. If I look like anybody else and I look like a dirty, you know what do you think they're going to say about me? Oh, that guy doesn't know how to dress. That guy's a pig. You know, I mean, everybody, you're a professional baseball player. You go out, you're going out to dinner with, David Ortiz and Mookie Betts. The first person they're going to look at is who? Who the hell is that guy?
Bodyguard. It's the bodyguard over there.
Bodyguard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they'll find Chris Sale when he had his big beard.
No, yeah, that was the thing in Boston, man. Like, especially, I've always been someone who dresses nice and like always looks good and stuff like that, looks professional. But man, that team in Boston was swagged out, so you had to up your game. I mean, I was playing with Hanley was there, who's swaggy.
Yeah.
Chris Young, probably the swaggiest player I've ever played with.
Really?
Like, I got my style from Chris Young 100%, and I tell him all the time. But yeah, man, I mean, we had some swaggy dudes and you had to show up. Like we had to wear suits on every flight, which I love. I know guys hate that, but for me, like showing up on a flight in a suit is just like, all right, like this is show, like not in the minor leagues anymore. This is show. We're on a show plane wearing show freaking suits. So let's go.
As long as you're not a shofar.
No, definitely
I'm
not.
messing with you, man. But by the way, you are clean cut, no question. I mean, even your books are set up perfectly.
Oh, dude, I'm a perfectionist.
Oh, I could see that. I'm like that too, man. Don't
like
get it
watching.
twisted.
You guys watch that David Beckham documentary?
Of course, I loved it.
Dude, that guy is cleaning the wicks and the candles. Like,
he's
that guy
OCD.
takes it to. I'm not doing that, but I'm pretty locked in.
But when he played soccer. I mean, he was like that, as a professional soccer player. Everything he was a perfectionist, and that's when you want to be the greatest, or you want to be one of the best in the world. That's what you have to be. It's perfection at its fullest. Even with radio,
it's so true, man.
Even with radio, when you put yourself out there, you got to. Personality and being punctual is what changes the industry, and people that are boring and dull, I don't want to listen to them. It's just pathetic. So when you're interviewing people, you want to bring their personalities out, because that brings
100%.
the whole
That's what people want to see. They want to see what's behind that guy. Like you've got to see David Beckham's like real life of dude. This guy was getting harassed more than anybody. The whole country hated him. And he got to talk about his actual feelings and who he was and stuff. That was so sick, dude. That's what's cool about social media now, is that guys get to show their personality, and it's not like back then. It was like, hey, don't show your personality. You have to be perfect. Like, don't talk about this subject. Don't talk about that subject. Now it's like, hey, talk about whatever you want. Like, be you. This is what gets clicks. This is what people want to see, so which is like the good part of social media. But I mean, some people obviously take it too far. Antonio Brown, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So,
wow.
You know what I mean? So
He's
it's like
that guy's got a head up his ass or something, man. I mean, that guy's he's out of control. I mean, I think he's been hit too many times to the head.
But like it's just like some people just, when it seems like too fake, it's like, all right, like I'm off this guy. Like there's just like too much that happens. Like, all right, this isn't really like, this guy's truly psycho, and and like this is like who he truly is. All right, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But some guys, you're just like, dude, that's not you, bro. Like, people who know you know you're not like that, and only when you have a camera, you're like that. It's like off.
I would agree with you. I definitely. I've been around enough athletes in different sports, mixed martial arts, boxing, and some of them are unique and some of them are just ridiculous. I mean, and I'm not going to mention any names because I've been attacked on social media by plenty of mixed martial artists, and Speedy knows the story.
Yeah, and it was wanted in another country. So.
Yes, I mean, I'm wanted.
That's a bad sport to attack right there,
I was the fighter, by the way, so I guess.
Oh, so you're good, dude.
Yeah, well, you know
the grappling techniques, you got them.
Yeah, well,
Not me though. No shot. I wouldn't last 10 seconds in a freaking octagon.
Oh, believe me, Errol has come out and said he wants to fight this fighter because he thinks he could beat him.
No, I do. I do believe I could beat him. And I'm heavier than he is. I don't know how he's going to get me to the ground. So I'm 230 pounds. You know, I'm a pretty big guy, and it's when you know how to grapple and you know how to defend yourself. It's not easy to take somebody.
Dude, that's the whole grapple thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that is scary. Like when you meet someone who can do that and put you in a twist before you can even say a word, it's like, all right, no thanks.
Well, it's an art, and people think,
it's
you know, everybody
beautiful.
thinks it is a beautiful art. If you're
it's watching like these videos, because I'm into UFC and all that stuff too, and it's impressive. Like just watching guys like move slowly when they do these movements, like when Conor McGregor like had those videos of him moving like slow with the guys, like mimicking him. I'm like,
you mentioned the guy.
But that is beautiful, man. That is. People think, oh, that's easy. I could do that. Get out of here.
Well, you mentioned the guy that I've had problems with on social media over the
last
couple of years.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah, we don't like each other.
Wow.
Weren't you there when he
yes,
bombed a car or something?
I
like
I was there when he in Brooklyn at the where Brooklyn.
I don't remember. It was before
basketball. Where was the
Barclays
Yeah,
Center?
the Barclays Center. I was at the Barclay at the press conference, and where he threw
the chair.
Stool. Yes, he threw the stool through the window. I was there, and me and him had words after that. So
Love that.
I was working the press over there. He's an ass. Okay, now listen. A lot of people that know him have told me that he's a good person off and out of the octagon. But personally, when he's trying to play something, he's a complete asshole. That's just my opinion. So,
but dude, there's just some people, man, that just have that switch. Like when it's fight mode or when it's game mode, you know, they flip it and they become a completely different person. You know, and then when it's off the field, like the game's over or the fight's over, it's like, all right, now I can be myself. And like,
I don't understand that, Deven. By the way, everybody, we are talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero and ex-baseball player. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it's just like, it's that mentality. Like there's some guys that I played with, you know, that like if they didn't become that person during the game, like they were terrible. And it's like encouraged, like, hey, no, go to that guy. Like we need that guy. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's a mental thing, like a competitive thing, you know, like, and you become this persona, you know, and that's like what gives you your mojo, gives you your flow, gives you like your competitive edge against someone else, you know, like, and obviously people are known for that because that's where they're most seen is on the field and in the octagon and stuff like that. But I know a lot of guys that are like, they're like, man, that guy seems like such a terrible teammate and this and that. I'm like, actually, that guy is one of the best teammates of all time. And one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. Like that's usually what the opposite is, you know, like there are these people in the game or in the octagon and then off these guys are like hardworking, good teammates, great people, great family people. You know, it's just, dude, some people just have that switch, man. And some would say it's a problem, but for them, they use it to their advantage, you know?
I have that switch. I almost had that switch this weekend. I'm not going to mention on live radio what almost happened, but I haven't been in that situation in a very, very long time. And it's unfortunate the way it turned out to be. But nevertheless, I'm still here. I'm not arrested. I didn't do anything stupid enough to put myself in jail. But nevertheless, we really appreciate you, Deven. We really appreciate the time. You gave us 45 minutes, and that's, to me, fantastic. And we'd love to get you on the show again and keep up the good off season and your mojo and say hello to your girlfriend and enjoy your retirement, man. And what are you doing right now?
Man.
Are you doing anything? Are you doing a show?
So I'm trying to get into the sports media world now. You know, I'm trying to create some videos and talks with companies like ESPN, MLB Network to, you know, hopefully join the sports media world. Like hopefully start a podcast one day. That'd be a great goal with some of the guys. Just talking shop, talking game, talking my experiences and sharing it with people and just growing the game is really what I want to do. So I'm just in that mode right now, just in that transition mode to stay in the game somehow, you know, and just talk about baseball and life, man. And just chill and enjoy retirement. That's really where I'm at, and travel.
You should talk then, because if you want to do that, I've been doing this for a pretty long time. I can absolutely help you out.
Yeah, brother. I mean, I would love to sit down and chat and see what we could
Absolutely.
work out. That'd be so sick. The
I'm
more
I'm
the more
actually
I could
sitting
get
down.
on, the better. You know what I'm saying? The more reps I can get, the more
Absolutely.
fluid.
We had Jock Jones on the show
Sick.
a week and a half ago, and Jock is fantastic. We've been talking off air, and Jock wants to come to New York. I want to show him around Long Island. He's never really been here. You know, he's been here,
damn.
but he's never got to get a chance to check out the wineries
Yeah.
out here. But Jock was really, really nice, and he's a
That's
cool
awesome.
dude. So, but yeah,
Awesome.
we'll talk off air. Absolutely, man. And
Perfect.
keep up the good work, my friend. And listen, enjoy your retirement, my friend.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
There you go. We were just talking to free agent infielder Deven Marrero. He's fantastic. He's retired and he's enjoying his retirement. He's got a girlfriend, ladies. So for all the ladies out there sending us messages right now, he is not single. So just so you know. Anyways, it's been a great show, Speedy. It really has. Devin is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And we went off set. We didn't even. It was like a
That was good. That was good.
conversation.
Yeah.
It was a conversation, and he's a nice guy. And listen, 7-8 years in the major leagues. That's a long career. And honestly, playing with some of the great players and the great teams that he's played for is fantastic. And to me, just playing professional sports is something amazing. If you get a chance to step on a field every single week and get paid to do that, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It
a
really
lot of the teams that he was on too. The Diamondbacks with these younger guys when they were younger too. Some of them probably were in the minors too. This World Series, same with the Red Sox, like he was saying. Like lot of those guys.
Sorry, Carl. I didn't read that in time, but what did he write? For example, I was always able to get most out of the high school pitchers, but how do you do? What does it say?
Oh, his first question was, "What does a good pitching coach bring to the table?" But Carl, he was a hitter. Deven Marrero was an infielder. He played second base, third base, and shortstop. He wasn't a pitcher. We had Shane Green on last week. It was a pitcher.
I remember him on the Mets.
Yeah, I remember him on the Mets too. He had 6 at bats because everyone was hurt. Like besides Lindor and I think Escobar was hurt. I think McNeil was healthy, but like every other infielder was hurt.
I did remember him on the Mets. I don't know if I remember him on the Red Sox.
I do remember him briefly on the Red Sox. I think he said like 16 and 17 because he was saying like he didn't play a lot because of Pedroia. Obviously, they had Bogarts. They had all these infielders that were there, so he didn't get a lot of playing time with them. But I briefly remember him in 16 and 17. But yeah, I definitely remember him with the Mets playing when everyone else was hurt.
I do remember him on Arizona. I did get a chance to see him, but to me, Devin was fantastic, and to me, it was an interview where we kind of just hung out and shoot some questions and throw some curveballs. But I was happy, and we had his opinion about Yamamoto. He watched him, and I think I disagree with him. I think one of the New York teams are going to land him. That's what I think. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a New York fan or any of that. I just have this feeling that either the Yankees and the Mets are going to win the bid for him. I think more than likely the Mets, but I think the Yankees are going to put all their eggs in that basket like Ohtani, and we'll see where it lands. I mean, it's the Yankees, so I'm sure Yamamoto knows that the Yankees are the pinstripes. Playing in New York is something special, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with Yamamoto. But anyways, great interview. He was fantastic. The Diamondbacks will face the Rangers in 2023 World Series. Only the third time in MLB history that the 2 wildcard teams will face each other in the World Series. Both the Diamondbacks and the Rangers lost 100 games in 2021 season. Only 4 other teams in the last 100 years have made the World Series after a 100-loss season. The Diamondbacks only won 84 games during the regular season, the third lowest by a World Series representative. Bruce Bochy becomes the first manager in MLB history to make the World Series with 3 different teams. Bochy also becomes the first manager to make the World Series over 20 years removed from his first appearance, which was the Padres in 1998. Dusty Baker also mentioned after the Astros lost the Game 7 to the Rangers that he will be retiring as manager. Dusty had 2,183 wins as a manager in his career, 7th most in MLB history. I want to say something about Dusty Baker first before we get into the World Series because there's a lot to talk about with that. Dusty Baker has been a part of baseball. He was baseball. He is baseball for over 50 years. It's unbelievable how long he has been a manager in baseball. And finally to win a World Series like he did last year was special. I do not like the Astros. I don't like that organization. I don't like the things that they have done in the past. I always liked Dusty Baker. Always liked Dusty Baker.
And even as a player, too. He played for a long time, too, and
Yes.
was a good player.
Yes.
So, he was, like Carl's saying in the comment section, a baseball lifer. Like, he's one of those guys that made an impact on and off the field, both as a player and as a manager, too. 5 different teams. He made the World Series with the Giants in 2002. It took him a while to get back, but had a lot of good runs with the Cubs and the Reds and a lot of these other good teams. And I'll be honest, in 2019, when they hired him after they lost to the Nationals in the World Series,
Great hire,
I didn't think it was going to work because he was like, old school manager, but an analytic driven team. I didn't think it would work, but he brought a lot of stability and all the players love him. And you could see why players like the players like Altuve and Bregman look up to somebody like Dusty Baker, losing AJ Hinch the way they did after the cheating scandal. He brought some stability to that organization, and good for him for winning a World Series.
And he's been a face of that organization since he's taken over that team. When everybody was talking about Altuve and all these other guys, and they were trying to mix it up. They were trying to get rid of these old pieces and bring in the new pieces and start over. Dusty Baker really stamped his name, stamped his game to that team. And it's interesting who they're going to bring in now that Dusty Baker's gone. There's quite a few managers that could be available that might be interested in the position, that should be interested in the position because it's a good young team that has a lot of talent there. But I was surprised when Dusty Baker came out and said that he was walking away from baseball, especially when he's been a part of an organization that's won significant, has won 2 championships in the last, 7-8 years.
Right, and it's made the ALCS every year for the last 7 years.
And probably was one of their better rosters this year. So I was very surprised when he said it. But Dusty is an older, manager. He's been in the league for a very long time. He's over 80 years old. He has grandchildren. I remember he was saying that he has a ton of grandchildren, and he wants to spend time with his children. And when you're a part of a baseball team in 162 games in a season, you have to travel. You don't get a chance to see your kids. You don't get a chance to see your grandchildren. You don't get a chance to see your wife. So Dusty has put, his life, into baseball. And that's something that's special about Dusty. I think when you look at Dusty Baker, and he should go to the Hall of Fame as a manager, and he will go to the Hall of Fame. Hopefully when he's alive. I think when you look at guys like Bruce Bochy, you try to compare and contrast what Bochy has done in the time that he's done as a manager, and you look at Dusty, Dusty has never done what Bochy has done as far as championship is concerned, but Bruce Bochy is one of the most respected managers in baseball. And when the Rangers somehow plied him out of retirement, I was surprised about that. When Dusty Baker took over this Astros team, I knew it was going to be a good hire for that team because he gave them a different outlook to the game. I mean, he is an old-fashioned type of guy, and for the years that they were as good as they were, they played that new school baseball. He transitioned it, and it worked. And I think that Dusty Baker will go down as one of the best managers of all time, one of the lifers of baseball, and one of the spectators, the faces of the game of baseball.
And absolutely, when you look at the teams that he's managed too, like he had to bring them a lot from like a lot of these darker times of their history too. When you started with the Giants too, like the Giants from the 80s and the 90s were really bad, except for the 89 World Series. And that team went to the World Series in 2002. It stayed really good for a while too. Carl's mentioned in the comments, the Cubs, obviously he was there.
That's right.
Robbed of a World Series potentially with the whole Steve Bartman thing. Yeah. And then they had good teams in 07 and 08 too. They went to the ALCS one of those years, and the Reds too. The Reds were really bad after their 1990 World Series for a while as well. And they made the playoffs a lot with him there too. And the Astros trying to dig them out of the whole cheating scandal too. There's a lot of pressure to be able to do that kind of thing. They made the ALCS as a wild card in the COVID shortened season in 2020. They lost against the Rays, and then they made the World Series each of the last 2 years. They won this second time. And you're right. He's one of those guys that's adaptable to anything, all player types, all city types, one of the greatest figures in baseball, both as a manager and as a player as well.
Now let's get into the World Series, which I'm going to be excited to watch because Texas and Arizona were not expected to be here. Texas, who was a team last year that was one of the worst teams in baseball. They had over 100 losses. They bring in Bruce Bochy in the offseason. Everybody was questioning. They bring in some free agents. They make moves. They bring in Jacob deGrom. They lost him before the season really even started. I mean, he pitched, how many games? He was gone.
And that was it.
He was gone. Then they make a trade for Max Scherzer and then Tommy Pham. And there was so many questions. I mean, not Tommy Pham. I'm sorry. I was talking about the Texas
Jordan
Rangers.
Montgomery.
Jordan Montgomery. That's who I meant. Jordan Montgomery. When you talk about some of the guys that they brought in at the trade deadline and everything, there were a lot of questions to this team. And Garcia, what he did throughout the season, being that he was 30 years old, he's been in the league for quite a few years and really break out this season with Bruce Bochy and everything like that. It was amazing to watch. And then Corey Seager having the season that he had, and Marcus Semien, who had a bad season last year, played better this year. This roster started to fall together in the second half of the season, got really, really hot, and then squeaked into the playoffs and just made a run. Really, it was amazing what they did. Knocking off the Tampa Bay Rays the way they did, and then beating the Baltimore Orioles, it was sensational. And then going against I think they had the hardest way to the World Series in a very long time. I've never seen.
100%.
If you look at the way, when you look at the teams and the rosters they had to go through to get to the World Series, absolutely amazing. And that says a lot about Bruce Bochy. It really does, Speedy, because of who he is and what he has done. This guy has won everywhere he's gone. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. And that's what makes him one of the best managers we've ever seen and one of the winningest managers we've ever seen. If he wins a World Series with this Texas Ranger team, who's never won a World Series and has been there quite a few times and never got over the hump, if he does that, he could go down as one of the greatest managers to ever manage in baseball history.
Yeah, the Giants beat them in 2010 with Bruce Bochy, and that team was completely different than this Rangers team that's built a lot more with the offense too. And the Rangers, when it comes to their pattern, the way they built their team, they were making a lot of the same. They were doing a lot of the same trends they had that didn't work in previous years too. They brought in all these free agent pitchers in the past too that did not work. They had these prospects come up right away, a lot earlier or later than expected, and a lot of them did not pan out. And they were top prospects. And these guys that weren't as much top prospect, probably besides Garcia at the time, he was, I think, Rookie of the Year runner-up in 2020. But you're right, he came up at 26 years old and now 30 years old. I didn't realize he was actually designated for assignment in 2021, but nobody brought him in after that. And so he ended up coming back to the Rangers too. So those stories are incredible. Then you look at somebody like Jonah Heim, an offensive catcher spark this year.
Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah. Heim was a guy that was, I think, a 28-year-old rookie 2 years ago who was only a good defensive guy. Now he's hitting. Josh Young, the way he hit this year was
fantastic. He's a great young player they have. I mean, this roster is good, and their farm system's even better. I mean, this is a loaded team. And Bruce Bochy, this isn't going to be the first time he goes here. I'm telling you this right now. If Bruce Bochy decides to stay here for 5 or 6 years, and he could, I mean, he's not 80 years old,
right,
like Dusty Baker. And I didn't think Bruce Bochy was coming back to baseball because he left the Giants, and there were a lot of questions on why he left because they were still winning. They were still a competitive team. Why did he part ways with them? Maybe he just didn't think that the roster was going to move any further than where it was. He retires and he steps down from baseball. And then all of a sudden, 2 years? And he takes this Texas Ranger job. There was a lot of questions when he took this job. One, this team lost 100 games last year.
Right.
They weren't a good team. The Corey Seager and the Marcus Semien signing, a lot of people questioned giving Corey Seager $300 million.
And 8 years for somebody that injury prone.
And Marcus Semien, a guy that made $260 million. You gave two players $500 million. And they didn't. Seager had a decent season last year, but Marcus Semien's was horrible.
Yeah.
And then some of the rosters that some of the team, the players that they added in the offseason, the Jacob deGroms, that falling apart. Then you bring in Max Scherzer, that falling apart. There was so many things that happened to this roster all season long, but Bruce Bochy found a way to get this team over the hump.
Right. And you look at some of the other pitchers they brought in the past that were good with other teams, and it just did not work with the Rangers too. Bochy was able to find ways to make it fit with his way of philosophy that he came from San Francisco, where they had so many good pitchers for a while. Even when they lost Lincecum and Kane, they still were steady with great pitching for a while. With Bumgarner, they rebirthed Johnny Cueto for a while too, when he was kind of up and down. And the Giants, I think the reason they ended up falling out was just more of the big contracts and the fact that core got old. But Bochy's system was still ended up working to be competitive. Because like you were saying, his last year in 2019, the Giants almost made the playoffs. They were in a wild card run with the Mets, the Diamondbacks, or a lot of teams that got hot in the second half. The Brewers ended up holding on, but he didn't lose anything with the pulse of the game too. And like we were saying with Dusty Baker, he evolves with the types of teams. This Texas Rangers team is the most loaded offensive team he's played with, even more than when he was with the Giants. Now, the pitching wasn't as the same as the Giants, but he was able to adapt, get those kind of things to work, and here they are in the World Series.
And that's the great thing about baseball is you don't expect certain teams. Hockey and baseball, there's so many questions of what happens going through that obstacle. With hockey, you got to go through 7-game series all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and you don't know what goalie gets hot. You don't know what player gets hot. Look at the Florida Panthers. Did anybody think the Florida Panthers were going to the Stanley Cup Finals the way they did? Nobody did. But that's what makes hockey so amazing to watch in the playoffs, and that's why they say hockey's the best to watch when it comes to the playoffs. The same thing with baseball. You don't expect stuff like this, but again, we've seen this before. There are so many good teams. For years, the Yankees had some of the best rosters, and they fall apart throughout the playoffs. They lose in the first round. They lose in the wild card game. They lose in the ALCS. They can't get over the hump. Why? Because they don't have specific things that teams look for when it comes to the playoffs. Good defense in the infield, good pitching, good bullpen. Bullpen doesn't wear out throughout the regular season. That's something that we've seen, especially with the Texas Rangers. What I noticed about the Texas Rangers in the second half, the moves that they made in the second half didn't fully work. But here's the thing, even though they didn't work, the players that they had on the roster, they filled in those spots and they played better. And that has a lot to do with managing. And if you have a good manager and you have a manager that understands the game of baseball and understands how to pull the right plug and put the right pieces in the right places, it's like chess. That's what makes Bruce Bochy so special.
Right. You can micromanage in the postseason too, from an analytic stat split that could work in your favor too. You look at somebody like Josh Spores, a relief pitcher that had a 5 ERA in the regular season, and he's been one of their best relief pitchers in the playoffs. Somebody like Dane Dunning, who's a hybrid starter reliever that Bruce Bochy, I think besides Game 3 against the Astros, he's used very well so far in this postseason. And like you're saying, the rebirth of these starting pitchers too. Jordan Montgomery, Nathan Eovaldi coming over. You had John Gray in the regular season that was a good asset for them too. A guy that was pretty bad in Colorado the last 3 years before that. And they make it work with that kind of philosophy, whatever the analytics are, but also the combined of what the Giants used, a lot of the old school tactics with their pitching as well, and some of the tactics with their hitting too. The Rangers did not have to rely on the home run ball. And like Deven Marrero was saying, like teams that rely too much on the home run ball, it'll eventually steam out, like what happened with the Phillies. And the Rangers did not have to do that. They were still able to get doubles. They stole a lot of bases, which is not their thing in Game 7 because they knew Christian Javier couldn't hold guys on. How
about Evan Longoria going back to the World Series? Something that I never would have thought in my wildest dreams that I would hear Evan Longoria go to a World Series again. And with all the years that he went to the Rays, never get over the hump. Maybe he has a chance to actually win a World Series with an Arizona team where he's like, 37, 38 years old. He's on the tail end of his career. So that's an amazing statement. And Evan Longoria has been one of the leaders of this team, has really pushed this team and pushed it, pushed him to that next level. And Tommy Pham, who came from the Mets, who played okay with the Mets and comes over here and gets hot in the second half of the season, another leader of this team. So this Arizona Diamondback team has been very special, and Gurriel hitting the way he has in the playoffs, his brother coming from the Astros. Some people thought we were going to see both brothers play against one another in the World Series. That didn't turn out to be. So it's really been fantastic to watch. And that's what I love about baseball is when you get a chance to see. I'm going to watch every single game of the World Series because I don't know what to expect in this series. I expect Texas to come out the winner in 6, like Carl says. I think Texas is the better team, but who's to say that Arizona can't win?
Yeah, again, this is going to be a series that's very interesting too, because both teams are very similarly structured, but also similarly creative with what they've done too. The Diamondbacks did it a little differently with the younger pitchers when it comes to bringing them up and using them out of the bullpen too. Something I've encouraged that the Yankees had done in previous postseasons. They didn't do enough. Something I've encouraged that the Astros have done in years past too that worked, and they did it with Brandon Pfaadt, who was a top 20 prospect in all of baseball. They used him out of the bullpen to start against the Dodgers, and then the last 2 games, he pitched as a starter. He pitched very well in Game 7 and in Game 3. And then Jordan Lawler, top 10 prospect in baseball, brought him up at the end of the year. Good stolen base guy to go along with the other young players that they have. But like you said, Evan Longoria, these other types of veterans stabilizing this team really helped them. And Longoria, he knows how that worked with the Rays. He was a rookie in 2008 when they went to the World Series as a wild card.
This is ridiculous. Watching this game, the Knicks were up by 7 points, and they're flopping around. You see the Boston Celtics flopping flopping around right now, and they're going to come back and they're going to win the game. And the referees are just giving the game away to the Boston Celtics. This is the problem with basketball, this flopping thing. Call a technical. If you're watching these guys flop, call a technical foul. I mean, last year, how many times did they call a technical foul on somebody that was flopping when they should have done it all season long? Porzingis just flopped, okay? He flopped. Nobody even touched him, and they called a foul. All right, this is the problem with this game of basketball. They were just up by 7 points with 4 minutes left. Now they're up by 3 points, and then Boston's going to win this game because of the referees. They're horrible. Everybody says, "Oh, just stop saying the referees." It's true. Watch the game. Watch the game. I don't know what anybody's watching.
Going back to the Diamondbacks, though, you look at a young team that is also very athletic too. They're the perfect team if you want to look at how to build a team that's rebuilding. That's the mold you want to build it on, especially these newer rules too. And I'm curious to see how aggressive they'll be on the base paths too against these older Rangers pitchers too. Nathan Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, and John Gray if he ends up pitching, and then Jordan Montgomery. These are all older pitchers. I think Montgomery's the youngest one, and I think he's 30. And are they going to be able to hold on the base runners with this team speed that the Diamondbacks have too? Now the Rangers don't steal a lot, but you saw at the end of the series against the Astros, they did it when they had to.
Porzingis flops again. He flops again. Thank God they didn't call a foul on that again. All he does is flops. It's horrible. I know we're talking about baseball, but watching this game, I'm watching the last 2 minutes of this game. It's despicable what the referees are sitting here and letting go on in this game. It's absolutely despicable. But
and the back end of the bullpen for the Diamondbacks too has an upgrade over the Rangers, but the depth of the Diamondbacks was something that I wasn't sure if they would be able to hold in the playoffs. They've done that so far. So it'll be interesting to see, like you're saying, the chess game that Bruce Bochy and Torey Lovullo will both play. And I think Torey Lovullo has done a lot of the same concepts that Bochy has done too over the years too, with a lot of these pitchers coming out of at different spots too. And he's not afraid to use his best pitcher, even if it's not the 9th inning or anything like that too, which is something that's going to be essential in this series. I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Rangers in 6. I think if it goes to a 7th game, it'll be Arizona, but I'm going to go Rangers in 6.
I think this is going to be a fun series. I think it goes 6 games. I can't see Arizona taking this 7 games. I do believe that Texas is a lot better than Philadelphia. They've played a lot better in this series. They have more depth. I hope that Texas don't try to put Max Scherzer on the mound twice in this series. If you're going to put him on, you put him on once and hope that he can pitch 2 or 3 innings. If he could pitch for 2 or 3 innings, then and you can get enough out of him for 2 or 3 innings, good. Texas made a big mistake bringing Max Scherzer. I've said it already. I told Met fans it was a big mistake bringing him in, and I know now all of a sudden Met fans are throwing him, and they're all happy that Max Scherzer is failing. But if Max Scherzer somehow wins a World Series with this Texas Ranger team, and he has nothing to do with it, to me, it just makes me laugh about all the Met fans that said that they're praying that this guy fails.
Well, the Mets are not going to. The Mets fans are not going to be happy anyway because it's either going to be Max Scherzer or Paul Sewald that wins the World Series. Paul Sewald was a pretty bad Met as well, and now he's one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. Then you got Paul Sewald, you got Tommy Pham, and you also got Miguel Castro in that Arizona bullpen as well versus Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom and off the bench, Travis Jankowski, who was briefly at that as well.
And then again, I want to see Jordan Montgomery, who's been one of the hottest pitchers in baseball. He really is. And he is going to be a big name that everybody's going to be talking about in the offseason. He's going to be available. He's not signing back with Texas. Texas is probably going to let him go. There are teams. I've heard the Yankees are interested in bringing him back. I've heard a ton of teams. I could see the Mets bringing him in if they fail on Yamamoto. There are teams that are going to be interested in a guy like him because he's pitched very well in the playoffs. With the Yankees, he was the Yankees' best playoff pitcher when he was there, and he's pitched so well with Texas. I think his ERA is like 1.62 or something like that. He's been dominant, and to me, he's been. I fully believe he's been the MVP of this Texas Ranger team.
Yeah, they've needed him too against the Astros lineup, especially that has top end lefties with Tucker and Alvarez too. And they're going to need that kind of thing against Corbin Carroll and this Diamondbacks team that have a lot of right-handed hitters that have good splits against lefties too. So that's going to be a big key to get a lot of efficiency out of him. Now, Jordan Montgomery's never been a massive length guy, but we even see him go further in the game in game 1 against the Astros too. So it's definitely something that Bochy can utilize if that's the same case. Same kind of thing with Eovaldi too. Eovaldi's been good for length in the past too, but he's also been good out of the bullpen sometimes as a 3-inning type guy if they need him later in the series too. So I'm curious, he'll obviously pitch 2 starts, but I'm curious if it goes to a game 7, if they'll end up doing that. And that's the creativity that Bochy utilized very well with the Giants, especially in 2014 against the Royals, where they didn't have the same level of pitching staff like Lincecum and Kane.
Yeah, I'm watching this, and did the Knicks get the foul? I don't even know because I can't hear it, but they better. I mean, the whole game has been a flop nation. It really has been. And I'm not going to say that the Knicks don't flop. They have Julius Randle. He's a flopping machine. But to watch this game and watch how many people are flopping around and how the referees don't see it. How do they not see it? It's to me, it's absolute appalling. But this is going to be a good series. I think it's going to be wide open, and I expect a lot of home runs in this series. As much as we've seen good pitching, I could see a lot of home runs. I think Garcia has been the hottest hitter in the Texas Rangers roster. I was speaking to Josh about it, and Josh was like, "Oh, he's overrated. He's this, he's that." And I said, "Watch, he'll be the big factor in game number 7." He was the big factor. Hit the 2 home runs. I mean, I think he's the first player in history to do what he did in a game number 7.
Yeah, they fired him up hit by the pitch, and he struck out 3 times after that. But then he went on a home run tear. So maybe they shouldn't have triggered Mr. Brian Abreu on the Astros, hitting him in a pitch in the 8th inning to cause that brawl. Yes, Carl, the Cubs could get credit to the Diamondbacks making the World Series for collapsing. Yeah, the Diamondbacks swept the Cubs at the end of the season.
Speedy, you need to drink something because you keep coughing and you keep doing it. And you need to go see a doctor because you've been coughing and you barely could speak straight. So you definitely need to do that when you get a chance. Again, when you look at what is going on in basketball right now, I've been watching some of the games during the show, and to me, the 2 things that have stuck out to me so far in the last 2 days of basketball, the first two days of the basketball season, is flopping. And the NBA started to give these guys technical fouls if they catch them flopping. This game has been nothing but flopping, and they're practically, to me, the Knicks. The referees gave this game away. If Boston wins this game, it's because of the referees. I'm telling you right now. Watch this game. Watch the 4 minutes left of the game. They've practically given the game to Boston. Given the game to Boston.
Carl said they missed the tech. So yeah, it seems like that they're giving the game again. They tied the game now with the 2 free throws. So yeah, maybe. Carl says Brunson blowing it as well.
I'm watching the game. I don't see Brunson blowing. I mean, the Knicks were up by 7. Yes, he missed a layup and all that other stuff, but it's not. It's one play doesn't cost the game.
Unless you're Julius Randle and missed 5 times in the final minute.
I mean, the Knicks are, and now Porzingis hits a deep 3.
Of course he does.
He hits a big and the Knicks are going to lose this game.
Yeah,
they're going to lose this game.
Fitting that it has to be Porzingis.
And now you have RJ Barrett shooting a 3, and he can't hit for crap. So the game's over. So great. The Knicks had a 7-point lead with 3 minutes and 51 seconds left of the game, and they choked.
And of course, it's Porzingis at MSG, no less.
Yeah, well, Porzingis wanted to buy wanted a piece of the team. Here's it again, right here. Boom, game over.
Maybe Kristaps Porzingis should retire and then buy the team once James Dolan sells it.
It's horrible. This would, and again, everybody keeps saying, "Oh, the referees." Yeah, this game was the referees. The referees gave this game away. They gave this game away, and I hate it. I hate watching these games because you have guys like Jason Tatum, you have guys like Jaylen Brown. They're great players. There's no question. You have guys, and the Celtics have the more talented team.
Oh, of course.
But. And you see the Knicks like squeaking and trying to get points and stuff like that. And by the way, the Knicks haven't hit a shot in 2 minutes. All right.
Yeah.
But that has a lot to do with the play calling. And with me, it's all pace. Basketball is about the pace of the game.
Which the Knicks were slower last year in pace. I think
and why
24th or something.
And why aren't they giving the ball to Emmanuel quickly? He's been one of the hottest shooters on this team.
Yeah, at least for an open shot, as like catch and shoot type thing, you would think they would be more creative. But of course, it's Mr. Bricklayer who hopefully can hit his free throws down the stretch, which was a big issue for him last year too.
Yeah, well, again, I don't think the Knicks are going to win this game. They've given Boston a chance to come back in the game, and you can see the difference in this game.
Carl says Randall will make 1 of 2 at the line. Well, he made the first one, so if he misses the second one, you'll be right.
Carl. He might be right.
Hopefully that
Porzingis of course scores 28 points. Yep, he was right.
You called it, Carl. You called it.
Randall stinks. Okay, we all know that he stinks. Julius Randle is a horrible player, and we all know he can't hit a big shot. He's never hit
especially
a big
clutch free throws.
He can't hit a big shot, and to me, he's always trying to find an excuse behind it when he's not playing well.
Yeah, of course.
The team's not playing well. This is not.
What are you gonna do? Throw
that's not a foul. That's flop. This is ridiculous. Porzingis, you can't touch Porzingis and you flop. You can't touch him and he flops. Watch it. It's just this is a flop nation. This is why I hate basketball. Look at this. Ready? Watch. He flops.
Mm-hmm.
How is that not flopping?
Drama. Drama.
How is that not flopping? I don't understand it.
I hope all the Knicks fans are booing him right now.
It's absolute flop nation for this team.
Speaking of booing, I wonder if Julius Randle will try to trigger the Knicks fans to boo him like Evan Neal triggered the Giants fans to boo him more, too.
It's ridiculous. I can't stand watching basketball in the regular season. I really can't.
Carl also says Tatum travel before that.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Which is always a fishy one.
They're getting all the calls in this game. The Knicks are home, and Boston are getting all the calls.
That's how, Carl, that's always been a fishy one, too. I think NBA players get away with traveling a lot more than people think. So there's a lot.
I don't know why Jalen Brunson's holding the ball this long, and this is the problem. There we go.
Goes quickly,
and he missed.
Offensive board. Hartenstein puts it back 17.5.
They're going to have to foul.
Yeah, they're going to have to hope that Tatum misses a free throw. Nope, it's not going to be Tatum. Maybe
foul him. What are you doing?
Yep, they wasted 3 seconds.
Foul him. What? I don't understand. The Knicks lost this game because of just absolute flopping. So for all the fans out there that are watching the game, shame on you watching this crappy game. How do you lose a game when you had 7-point lead with 3 minutes and 51 seconds left of the game?
Welcome to the Kristaps Porzingis School of Flopping. And he says it travels again. Yeah, that one was definitely fishy because he had a double team on him and trying to break the press.
But this is the NBA. It's all about traveling. I mean, LeBron James is the king of traveling. So is James Harden.
Oh, yeah. James Harden is also the king of getting away with the Euro step all the time, too.
And, of course, Kristaps Porzingis is the player of the game. Why not? Because he's the king of flopping.
Just rub it in more, MSG.
Well, where's Jeff?
ESPN.
Where's Jeff on that? Where's Jeff on that? But it's horrible. I can't stand watching regular season basketball because of this.
Don't worry. At least we'll have college basketball soon. You can watch
I'd rather watch that. I mean,
you can watch your favorite coach, John Shire.
And by the way, my favorite coach. Who got an extension, by the way.
Yep. Your favorite, Carl's favorite coach.
Carl's favorite coach, because he actually coached him.
Yep.
All right.
Carl will be more.
Carl, you should reach out to him. Carl, you should reach out to him and see if he'll take you out to dinner after the contract he just got. He should.
Carl will be more of a Duke fan than you because of that. Even though I think Carl's actually a Duke fan.
I am a Duke fan. I'll always be a Duke fan. Not because of Shire. I'm a Coach K fan, but I grew up a Duke fan, and I'll always be a Duke fan. I don't care who's coaching my team. Shire with the extension. Yes, Carl. Yes, I know you're happy. You're jumping for joy. He should be taking you out to dinner because you've been preaching him all 2 years of it.
Just to coach 51 points in an NCAA tournament.
Oh, man. I can get him on the show for you. You could get out of here, Carl. You can't get him on the show. Stop it, Carl. Carl, stop it. You can't get him on the show. Carl, if you could get him on the show, I'll take you and your family out to dinner. All right. I will come down to Florida and take you out to a steak dinner. How's that sound? That's fair. I mean, I think that's
very fair.
I'll take you guys out to a nice steak dinner. Why not? Tampa? Is that where Carl lives?
I think so. We're right outside of Tampa. Carl confirmed that for sure, but I think it was that area.
All right. So when I go and visit Brittany's father, we'll take him out to dinner. I'll take him and his family out to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
If he can get Shire on the show.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be interesting.
That would definitely be interesting for sure.
I mean, I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but I'm going to tell him.
I was going to say
you wouldn't be
that's going to be a little awkward.
You wouldn't have been my pick to be the coach of my Blue Devils.
It's basically the same thing as if somehow we got Eli Apple on the show.
South of Tampa. He's south of Tampa. All right,
okay.
so I could take him out to dinner. Why not? Carl, if you can get him on the show, I'll take you and your family out to a nice steak dinner.
John Shire. Yeah.
Why not?
Yep, no, that definitely would be the case. We had the FDU coach on our show, Tobin Anderson, who was very good. Now
fantastic
at Iona,
fantastic,
and the 16 seed that upset Stuart Schweigert's Purdue Boilermakers, and he wasn't too happy about that.
No, he wasn't.
But he decided to be more pissed off at Jeff when we had him on the show.
Funny. Look at Doc Rivers. He's now analyzing things. Oh God,
Knicks legend Doc Rivers.
What did ESPN hire him after firing Jeff Van Gundy? Who's he working for now? Oh, I know, the Celtics.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did see that. Maybe Doc Rivers will broadcast for a year, then go back to coaching the Clippers again.
Boy, oh boy, do I hate the Boston Celtics. And now they take one of my coaches.
Maybe Doc Rivers will go back to the Knicks in an organizational.
Please don't.
And they can trade for each other.
I do not want Doc Rivers as my head coach. Nope. I want to stay far, far away from him.
No, I would too, but
Tom Thibodeau and him are like best friends, so that quite possibly could happen.
Maybe Tom Thibodeau and Doc Rivers can get courtside seats when James Dolan sells the team and somebody else owns it.
That's true too. And now that the Celtics, maybe they miss a free throw here, and maybe the Knicks get lucky and toss up a three.
They have it. It looks like Pritchard on the line shooting the free throws.
He's a good free throw shooter. Yes, all of the guys on the court are good free throw shooters.
Yeah, 75% last year, which is a little above the league average. But maybe he will miss one. Maybe the Knicks will get thrown a bone.
No,
but it's the Knicks, so they probably won't get thrown a bone.
No, they haven't gotten thrown a bone in this game. I mean, they're in the fourth quarter and they're getting no calls by the referees. But hey, guess what? And that's what Jeff will say. Referees. It is the referees in this game. I don't know what anybody's watching.
Yeah. Jeff is the same person who was complaining with the Patriots.
I don't know what he's
Chiefs
watching.
Game 4 years ago.
Jeff needs to stop. Okay, I let him come back. I freed him. He's not in. What are they, jail hostage or whatever they said. I've given him an opportunity to come back, and every single time he's come into the scope, he said something derogatory. He is, to me, unprofessional and not nice of a person. So why would I sit here and go back and forth? As a matter of fact, I don't even pay attention to some of the things that he posts up. I think he's an idiot.
That's why we have Carl. Carl is the stable.
I like Carl because Carl actually speaks. He's a sports fan. He's a fanatic. He listens to the show and he interacts with us. That's what the whole point of coming on here. And we only look at the Facebook. We don't look at YouTube. We don't look at TikTok. We don't look at any of the stuff that we post the show on. We're on 26 platforms, 25 platforms, whatever platforms we're on. We don't go on there and we don't do any of that. But we look at the Facebook and we tell people, if you want to talk to us and you want to be a part of the show, go on Facebook if you don't want to call the show. And Carl actually does that. No matter what. His arguments vary, and I respect them, even though sometimes I'm going to argue back with him.
Yep. Forever on John Shire until he proves otherwise.
Well, when John Shire wins a national championship, then we could talk. I don't think he's ever going to win a national championship with Duke. That's just my opinion. And to me, I do believe Coach K is still working with the organization, the team, and I think he is helping to recruit players.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't sell me John Shire.
Yeah,
okay?
he definitely has some recruiting prowess if they're still going to get
100%. They're getting they have the top recruiting class again this year.
Right.
And I would have obviously brought in Danny Hurley or Bobby Hurley. That's the route I would have went. I mean, Duke guys.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
You probably wish it was Danny Hurley. He just won a championship.
I'm bringing in Duke guys. And by the way, the Knicks lose. So congratulations to the first loss of the season. A game that they should have won, by the way.
They lost to Kristaps Porzingis' flop school.
I am
John Shire.
I am so pissed off at this game. And look at Boston. They're all happy. It's flop nation. For all the Boston Celtic fans are excited about this. This was a disgusting floppy game. And the NBA should be ashamed of themselves. And I can't wait tomorrow coming into the show and talking about this crap. All right. It's garbage. How do we sit here and watch this garbage? This is not basketball. This isn't basketball. For all you crazy, ridiculous fans that think basketball is better now, it is ridiculous. This would have never happened in the 90s. It would have never happened in the 80s. The flop nation, it's just garbage.
The Knicks got the calls in the 90s. Who would have thought?
No, they didn't.
Oh, okay. They still didn't. Sorry.
They didn't get the calls in the 90s.
Yep. The refs against
Did you watch the Houston series? Did you watch the Rockets and the Knicks?
The refs against the Knicks. Tale as old as time, I guess.
Listen, I'm going to say this very nicely. The NBA never liked the Knicks. Never, ever liked the Knicks. And by the way, Snug, if you don't think that was Flop Nation, then I don't know what you were watching, because that was an absolute garbage game, and they should have never won that game. But again, this is the NBA. Anybody that loves watching the NBA, you can enjoy watching a floppy game of basketball.
Carl says, what makes Danny Hurley a Duke guy?
And Snug, you could say the referees all you want. Watch the game. It has nothing to do with the referees. It has nothing to do with me saying the referees. It has everything to do with what happened in the game. Porzingis was flopping the whole fourth quarter. Flopping. And by the way, as Carl said, Jason Tatum was carrying the ball the whole last 3 minutes of the game. He carried the ball. He traveled like 2-3 times. And they never called it because it's Jason Tatum. But anyways, that's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, obviously, to our very special guest, obviously free agent infielder and retired infielder, Deven Marrero. He was fantastic. Thank you for giving us the time. Thank you to all the fans. Thank you to everybody that tunes in and listens to our show throughout the week, and all our network, from Game On to the Wise Guys and the Herd and our betting show. What's our betting show?
The Saturdays in Canada on Thursdays.
Saturdays in Canada on Thursday. So thank you to Chaz and Wes and everybody, all our handicappers. We will have our handicappers in tomorrow for Let's Parlay. Thank you to all the fans. We will tune in to the rest of the basketball games tonight, and we'll let you know what our thoughts tomorrow on the Sports Loudmouth. Until then, this is Errol Marks and Speedy Petey saying good night. We'll talk to you then. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
This is Mario Andretti. You know me as a race car driver, but I'm also a Meals on Wheels volunteer. I've raced against the sport's biggest personalities, but I've never met more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless.